Hey, hello, I'm Jeff Power, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. I'm really excited. We are broadcasting live from the Post Bar and Grill here in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. I'm joined by Kyle Elfrink and Logan Glasser. Guys, thanks so much for joining me on the broadcast. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Really looking forward to this. So we are doing a live stream of our big $10,000 draft. It's called the Syndicate. It's an awesome league. We figured we'd broadcast it out, let everybody watch as they're getting ready for their drafts coming up this weekend and next week as well before the season kicks off. So we thought it'd be a lot of fun to see what these guys are doing for these high-stake leagues. So, guys, I know I am. I'm really looking forward to it. How about you?
Well, you say it's an awesome league. It's also an awesome responsibility, I think, with $10,000 that's going to be on the line here, Jeff. And, you know, a lot of time in these big money leagues, you will see guys be a little more aggressive with certain picks and certain calls. Certainly getting a guy like Patrick Mahomes, I would suspect maybe somewhere in the first round tonight, whereas in a lot of normal drafts, maybe it's the end of the second round, the early third round. But here it's almost like go big or go home. So I think we're going to see some jump, if you will, on an RTSports ADP.
For sure. And there's a lot of players that still have question marks. We got Cooper Kupp coming off with that injury. We got Jonathan Taylor, who also is going to be out for 4 weeks. So a lot of players are still have big question marks coming into this draft.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be interesting, like Kyle said, just when these QBs start going. That's the big thing right now is quarterbacks. They're getting pushed up. Their ADPs have gotten pushed up this year. I'm really anxious to see where these high-stake players are going to play in the pay up for quarterback. Logan, I wanted to talk to you. You're kind of our rules guy. Can you go into the rules and let us know what this league rule settings are like?
For sure. So roster settings, we've got 1 quarterback, we've got 2 running backs, we got 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense. So overall, roster-wise, it's pretty balanced overall. A couple leagues you see more wide receivers getting taken earlier with 3 wide receivers, but it's pretty balanced with 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and then that flex spot. For payout structure, it's a 95% payout on that league. That's probably the highest that you will see in this industry. First place is going to be winning $40,000 for first place. Second place is going to win $30,000. Third place is going to have $24,000. Fourth place is $20,000. So it's one of our only leagues also that has the top 4 places getting paid out, and all 4 are at least doubling their prize with that. Playoffs, so 4 teams out of the 12 will be making the playoffs. Number 1 seed will be the best overall record. Number 2 will be the best points. Third will be the next best record, and fourth will be most points also. After that. And then also we've got FAB waivers. Each team will have $1,000 of FAB to use throughout the season.
So, Kyle, your home league, that's $10,000, right?
I was just going to say, when Logan was talking about that, he said, 4th place gets a measly, what was it, $20,000? I've never thought to myself, oh, man, if I could just finish in 4th place. But I kind of feel that way. If you make the playoffs, it's like, wow, it's all gravy after that point. But, man, you bring up $10,000. I was talking to some friends today. I was doing a home league draft of my own, and I mentioned that I'd be out here at the Post, and we'd be doing a league where everybody had ponied up $10,000, and we all looked at each other and said, whose wife allows that? Whose girlfriend allows that? Hell, who allows you themselves to make that? Now, the thing to note, too, with this draft tonight, you get 90 seconds between each selection, and you start to think to yourself, with $10,000 on the line, that's a very hot boil 90 seconds where there's a lot of pressure, I think, on all 12 of these contestants. And you know, strategies can explode. Strategies can kind of blow up in your face whenever you're working against that clock, and then you have the money that's on the line. The early rounds, I think everyone in this room kind of has a plan. They know what names are expected to go. But once you get to about round 7, round 8, I think that's where these leagues can be won. That is where depth really jumps up. That is where finding that handcuff running back who just happens to get the job in week 4. I think that's where the bread's going to be buttered for a lot of these guys as they get set to hopefully make a run at the title and the big money.
So I wanted to ask both of you this because you kind of just mentioned you're in your home league. How would you approach a draft like this for this amount of money? Logan, are your strategies any different? Are you going to do anything? You're going to be bold? You're going to be safe? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it differs a lot between a different overall contest, such as the TFC. TFC is that overall contest where you want to go big or go home with that. This type of league, I'm playing it a little bit safer overall. With the TFC, you're competing against $6,000 different teams. This league, you're only competing against 11. So I'm not going to be taking a huge risk. I'm not going to be taking players that are going to be out for a while, suspended, such as that. So I'm playing it a little bit safer overall.
And unfortunately, I'd probably go alongside the way Logan explains it, playing it safe. And, you say, do you treat this draft any differently? I think we may see people in this room treat it differently, but I guess I would argue, hey, do what got you here. If you're going to draft one way in a $5 league, I really wouldn't change my style in a $500 league, a $5,000 league. Now, I say that. I've never been in a $5,000 league. I've never been in a $10,000 league. So I'd like to say, hey, the way I played my home draft, which was a free league, that's how I'm going to play this draft. But I think there is that extra pressure, and there's also that extra payoff where you say, gosh, if I blow it in this first-round pick, if Christian McCaffrey is out come week 5, I'm cooked. Now, I would say you're actually not. You can fail in the first round and still survive. You've got 18 rounds here tonight. So building depth, I think, is critical. And what is going to be the breakdown? Will people walk away with like 8 running backs, or will they do like 6 wide receivers, 7 wide receivers? Will they go 3 tight ends? I mean, with 18 rounds, you have a lot of wiggle room in how you want to build these rosters.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this great bar we're at, the Post Bar and Grill. Absolutely fantastic place to come if you want to host a draft. If you're in the St. Louis area, just awesome. We really appreciate them letting us come here and broadcast this live. You can see behind me, it says world's first fantasy sports bar. I don't know if that's exactly,
it's
maybe
trademarked.
It's trademarked, you're right. So
true.
maybe it's got to be true then. So if you're in St. Louis, we're in Lake St. Louis. They have 4 locations, so they're all over the St. Louis area. If you're doing a draft and you want to, host it somewhere, it's always better in person, right?
Always better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
and you get a cheesesteak with your draft.
Exactly.
Which is a big plus here.
Yeah. So come here to the Post Sports Bar and Grill. Really appreciate them letting us come here and broadcast it. Just a great establishment. So I wanted to talk about the draft order here. I'll read it real quick. So we have End Zone Club picking first, then King FF02 2023, then Night Song 10KHS. So 10KHS is going to join us a little later in the show. He has the 4th pick. That's Ben Chiarelli. So we really appreciate Ben for coming on later on in the show and talking to us about his strategy. So that's awesome. And then Super Troopers is 5th. And then we have Cocktails and Dream is 6th. 7th, Fire McCarthy. I guess that's a Mike McCarthy fan there. WTF. Please Dolphins. I don't know what he wants the Dolphins to do, but that's the 10th pick. 11th pick is Garbage Monster, and then JHDP, and then Batman, kind of a play on his word there. Last name, I should say. So that's the draft order. We will be posting the draft throughout the broadcast as well. It's up there on the TV, too. We have games on and all sorts of stuff here as well. So that's the draft order. So I'm excited. Logan?
For sure. And we mentioned that $40,000 is the top prize in this, but that's not the biggest overall prize on our site. We've got the TFC going for $500,000 for first place overall. So go ahead and hop in that TFC, $300 entry fee for that. So definitely look into getting into those. Those drafts are going off round the clock during the day. I think we've had over 13 or 14 TFC drafts go off today. More will be filling tonight, along with tons tomorrow on that schedule. So definitely look into getting into a TFC.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. We have leagues going off around the clock at this point. I mean, if you want to get in a league at RealTime Fantasy Sports, go to RTSports.com, click on that Money League link. You can see everything we have to offer, all sorts of different contests, different price points, best ball leagues, you name it. We're offering it at RealTime Fantasy Sports. And our commissioner product, too, which is awesome as well. So we got confirmation as well. This is
2009.
Yeah, 2009. This is the first fantasy bar. So it is the world's first fantasy bar. So we appreciate that. One of the partners is over there letting us know that. So that's pretty cool.
And I remember back in 2009, Maplewood, which is a small suburb in St. Louis, was the first location of the Post. And I remember actually doing a draft, maybe not 09, but maybe 10 or 2011. And I can second you, a great place to host a draft and have some fun.
I agree. So we have the first pick coming up here in 3.5 minutes. What would you do with the first pick? Anybody do anything different? You guys going to do anything different here?
Well, I said we'd play it safe, so I guess Logan and I agree. Let's go with Justin Jefferson,
I
right?
think
I mean,
we know
that's
who we would be taking.
kind of the safe selection. I mean, Jamar Chase will get a little bit of love here, but he's regularly going off as number 2. One thing we've noticed in 2023, and I think for anybody out there who's been a part of fantasy football, here in the last 3 to 5 years, we have seen such an influx of young, high-end receiving talent. And now you're seeing it in the first round. The running back heavy approach, it's kind of old-fashioned for people. They're not really interested in that. We may go through this draft here tonight, and in the first 12 picks, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 running backs. Out of those 12, we'll probably get at least 6 wide receivers out of those first 12. We'll have Travis Kelce somewhere in here, and then maybe a quarterback sneaks in. But it used to be so running back heavy in the first round. And now for anybody who's drafted this year, you know how it is. It's much more wide receiver heavy, especially in a PPR setup like we have tonight.
Yeah, back in the probably 10 years ago or so, we used to see quarterbacks flying off of the first and second round, and that's really before strategy was adapted in fantasy leagues. And then this year, we kind of see quarterbacks coming back up from compared to last year. We used to see maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds. Now we're seeing about 8 quarterbacks going off in the first 5 rounds this year. So definitely a different strategy this year overall.
And to follow up on that positional talk at QB, again, 18 rounds here. Usually, for most of us, you rarely will have more than 2 quarterbacks. But I think tonight, you might see a few of these owners go with 3 quarterbacks. And that could really wipe. I mean, we have good quarterbacks who are still going well into the 20s. I mean, Brock Purdy, who came out of nowhere last year and is going to be healthy for week 1. Brock Purdy will probably be drafted tonight, but he's a QB3. And so how do you build that QB fold? Sure, the guy who has Pat Mahomes, he plans to play Pat Mahomes every single week. But we know how plans go, best laid plans, all of that. So I think we'll see a few teams maybe go above and beyond with 3 quarterbacks here tonight.
Definitely. And Ben Chiarelli said he would join us here real quick before the draft starts. Let's bring Ben on and ask him a couple questions. So, Ben, first of all, thanks a lot for joining. Really appreciate it. So, why do you do a $10,000 league? Like, that's a lot of money. Most people would say, never in a million years I'm going to do that. But what gets you excited about a league like this?
Well, Chris Thompson on the team over there, RTS, has boat payments to make, so I'm trying to help him out a little bit there. The main driver. No, I've actually been a long time RTS guy. I probably predate you, maybe even, Jeff. I've been on the site a long time. I love the best ball format, and I do the best ball format kind of like a mock draft. So I'll do, I don't know, a couple hundred of those. And I think there's a bunch of us on the site that do a lot of those. And I honestly don't have the bandwidth to manage a lot of teams. And once you get that far invested, you really don't want to spend time doing, a bunch of $30 All-Americans. So I just play a handful, call it 5 to 10 of the high stakes leagues. Throw my hat in the ring and kind of leave it at that. So it's kind of a best bang for your buck on my time is why I get involved.
So I got to ask you before the draft starts, just one question here. It's starting here in a second, but how do you approach a draft like this? I talked to these guys here a minute ago about their approach. So you're doing a $10,000 draft. What's your thought process? What's your game plan?
Yeah, you just let the draft come to you. I think anybody that comes into one of these things with the game plan is automatically going to lose before they even start. There's a lot of really talented fantasy football drafters in this one. So I think you just have to let it come as it will and build your roster accordingly. I really don't come in with any preconceived notions.
All right, Ben, I appreciate you coming on quickly and joining us. The draft has started now. The first pick, End Zone Club, is on the clock.
Oh, we get a surprise. How about that?
First
pick.
Wow.
Well, I was just going to say, when we have 90 seconds here to make this first pick, and you would think, I'm guessing End Zone Club is probably known for a week or so that he's the number 1 pick here.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, man, you've had 7 days to prep this pick. As soon as that clock starts, boom, hit the button. He took a good 40 seconds on that first pick, so maybe there was some inner dialogue about, do I go Jefferson or do I go Chase? He chose Jamar Chase at number 1.
And if you're team number 2, King FF 2023, you're not assuming you're getting Jamar or Justin Jefferson. You're assuming you're between Jamar Chase or Christian McCaffrey. So you're assuming one of those two. But you're not assuming that you're going to be getting Jefferson. I would probably say about 95% of our leagues are taking Jefferson overall, but
I've seen this more and more too. Tyreek Hill at 4. That's a guy in recent drafts I've watched here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. A lot more stock of Tyreek Hill going forward. You guys, you good with that?
Well, I was worried about Tyreek Hill going into last season, and I was totally wrong. I thought the move to Miami would be a downgrade for Tyreek Hill, moving to Miami with an offense that was brand new, a new head coach, new offensive system. Tua Tagovailoa, as good as he can be, is not Patrick Mahomes. I also kind of worried about Tyreek Hill playing in South Florida. I mean, his career has been marred by muscle injury after muscle injury. You start to think of yourself with, just dehydrating and pulling muscles. He blew it up in my face. I mean, Tyreek Hill had a phenomenal year. This is still a little too rich for me at number 4. I'm not sold because we saw it last year. If Tua goes down, and we saw it a couple of times last year, who's throwing the football to Tyreek Hill? Skylar Thompson? That scares me off when I've got that kind of investment in Tyreek Hill at number 4.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Logan, I want to ask you too. First round.
Another big surprise right there at number 5.
Wow. I can't even get to my questions because there's so many shocks. But I was going to ask you, who are your first round guys? Who do you like? I mean, obviously the top 3, but after that, who are the guys you like in the first round?
I'm kind of breaking it down into tiers in the first round. I think there's a tier number 1 with the first 3 picks. I think that's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey. So that's kind of that tier 1. There's a tier 2 of probably about 5 to 6 different players in that little range. And then there's another tier below that, which is kind of wide receiver heavy, and that tier number 3 that you kind of see in the early second round. So, but yeah, it's definitely a huge surprise seeing Pollard going there.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not in your tier, is he?
No, he's not in my tier. He's probably in my tier 3 that I would kind of be seeing in the early second round. But then also, if you're at that spot and Pollard's your guy, he's probably not going to be making it back around to you. So if he's your number 1 guy that you're eyeing, you kind of have to take him in that spot because he's not going to be making it back around to you.
It's true. He usually goes into first, early second round. Like one of my favorite first round picks, and I know it's not splashy or flashy, whatever, is Nick Chubb. I just think he's so safe. I think he might get a few more catches this year as well. But if you're looking for a rock solid, consistent producer, I just think Nick Chubb is a guy you can't go wrong.
And with where he's landing, we're starting to reach this point of the first round. You can go with a wide receiver, say at number 10, number 11. And then swinging back in the second round, you can still get Nick Chubb in the second round of the 12-team
There
league.
he goes.
Maybe they listened to us and they said, no, Nick Chubb's not making the second round. He goes there at number 9. I don't hate the pick. I will tell you this, though. I see McCaffrey, I see Pollard, Eckler, Barkley, Chubb. We're already up to 5 running backs in the first 9 picks, which is higher than I would expect it. Now, I would have never had Tony Pollard in the first round.
Yep.
The guy I actually like in this first round, and it's a combination of workload, it's a combination of the ability to catch the ball, and it's a combination of youth. Bijan Robinson, to me, I'm not somebody that is going to pump up a rookie and sit here and pound the table for a first-year player. But to me, I think you can make a case in this setup that he should go right after McCaffrey. I think he can go ahead of guys like Eckler, Barkley, and Chubb. Good to see here that garbage monster, I guess, listening live, said, I'll take him at number 10 in the first round.
I think he's got to be thrilled at that point. I agree with Kyle. If I'm, especially in kind of a format like this, like I kind of want to get my boom guys. I think Bijan, he's going to get a ton of work as a pass catcher, as a runner. I know that team's kind of scary a little bit, Atlanta, so they could be playing from behind, but still, I think Bijan is just huge ceiling. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's kind of different skill set than Chubb. Chubb's probably the best rusher on the ground. He doesn't get as many catches as probably Robinson will get this year. So it's 2 different types of skill sets, both going in the first round back to back.
And as we see us getting to the 12th pick, last pick of the first round, you're seeing a lot more green on this board than I previously expected. And why is that? Well, you can make the argument that this is a league with 2 starting wide receivers. Most of us, many of us, are in leagues with 3 starting wide receivers. So there's a bit more of an emphasis, to get that stud. In a league like this one, where you only have to start 2 wide receivers, maybe many of these players and drafters are saying, hey, it's more important for me to get the second running back, to get the first running back even, than to get 2, 3, and 4 maybe good receivers.
For sure. I think this is the most running backs I have seen almost in any type of draft that has gone in the first round. So I'm kind of shocked by this start, especially the first round.
It's going to be 8 of 12. 8 of 12 here in the first round.
Yeah.
Let's reset here for a second in case anybody's joining. As food comes in, looks really great. We're at the Post Bar and Grill. It's making me hungry. I can smell it. But We're in St. Louis, Missouri at the Post Bar and Grill watching this Syndicate draft, $10,000. I'm joined by Kyle Elfrink and Logan Glasser. Kyle, I didn't even mention it at the top, but you're with the Better Sports Network. When can people watch you and get your...
Well, I kind of jump around everywhere. I do some stuff, obviously, with BSN, Sirius XM. I'll be doing a Sunday night show with them throughout the season. I do some things over at Fantasy Guru. So I kind of have many masters to serve, I guess you would say.
There you go. It's funny. Kyle and I feel like we cross paths a lot, and we're on Zoom calls or whatever. And we live in the same area.
But getting to hang out in person with you is
this is the first time, I think, ever. So it's kind of funny that we haven't crossed paths earlier doing live stuff. But it's good to have you on with us, Kyle. We appreciate you joining us. And Logan, you join me a lot on our RealTime Fantasy Sports show that we do on the Better Sports Network as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a blast to be on that show.
We do that every Thursday at noon Eastern time, so you want to watch that, and we'll have stuff throughout the season as well. So the first round, here's how it played out. Jamar Chase, first pick overall, then Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Tony Pollard, the big surprise, in my opinion, Austin Eckler, Travis Kelce, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Bijan Robinson, Stephon Diggs, Derrick Henry. Any picks you guys want to dog?
Well, I think we should probably start with Tony Pollard. I mean, because that's the big surprise. I agree with Logan. I probably haven't seen near as many drafts as Logan has with RTSports, but it is very, very rare to see Tony Pollard in this spot. Now, why may he be there? Well, Zeke Elliott's gone. We all know that. Tony Pollard looked exceptional last season when given the opportunity. The problem is he had that injury in the NFC divisional game at San Francisco. He should be back from that, but to me, there's still a question mark as to will he be 100% from the get-go. On that, look at the number of touches for Tony Pollard. He's entering his fifth season. 101, 129, 169, 232. If I'm drafting a guy in the first round, I better be really close to 300 touches, at least as a running back. Is Pollard going to make that leap from a career high last season of 230, from an injury at the end of last season, and now we're going to push him to 300? I'm a little wary of that. I don't discount Pollard as an RB1. I think he has shown that ability. I just discount him as one of the first 5 selections off the board like we saw tonight.
Like Kyle mentioned, durability, a little bit of a concern. He's not the biggest back in the world. He's never been the feature back. What's your thoughts on his
durability? We're kind of seeing Pollard go around this area where we're at right now. He kind of got where Jacobs just went. But I do like Pollard, but I do prefer him in that second round. If I have a later pick, I'm looking at maybe a wide receiver in that number 1 round, and then coming back with Pollard at that second pick in that early second round.
Another thing to throw out here is Derrick Henry going as the 12th pick, which is slightly earlier than I think many people will find him. We've seen him more in that 15 to 20 range. And that's really a case of, oh, we're bored by you, Derrick Henry. You know, you're not the hot new thing. You're somebody who we expect to wear down. And maybe Derrick Henry is just going to be a freak at this position, where everybody else seems to tail off the age of 28. Here we see Derrick Henry every single year, 320, 330 touches. We saw a bit more of the receiving game last season as well. I don't love the pick at 12, but it's good to see somebody saying, you know what? I'm going to go with a guy who's just as good as any of these other guys. I'm going to go with a guy who's done what Tony Pollard is trying to do. Derrick Henry's done that 3 or 4 times already, and you get him at number 12. You're still able to back in that with a wide receiver. So you see the combo on the board. It's Derrick Henry at 12. It's Garrett Wilson at 13. Not too bad there to get your running back, any receiver there with the first 2 picks.
Yeah, and we just had our first quarterback go, and also our first stack. We got Travis Kelce along with Patrick Mahomes on the same team.
That was going to be my next question to you guys. Travis Kelce, I kind of feel like he's getting to that Derrick Henry range where, I mean, he's been in this league a long time. He gets a ton of catches. I thought last year might be when he starts to wear down a little bit. I worry about him a little bit. I don't know. I just have some concerns. You guys worried at all about Kelce, or is he going to just keep going?
He concerns me every year, but he proves me wrong every year. I think I avoided him all drafts last year just because of his age, and he had a monstrous year, won so many leagues. I think he was the number 1 drafted player on winning teams last year.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be 34 before we get to, October 6th? Yeah, his birthday's on the 5th. 34. You're right, Logan. He beat the birth certificate last
Yeah.
year because guys don't do this at the age of 33, and now we're going to have them to do it at 34.
Especially at the tight end position.
Yeah,
That's a whole different
and
element.
really, we need to make certain that people realize this. You're watching, I would argue, the greatest statistical tight end in the history of the NFL. I mean, for a guy who's done it this long, and I know everybody will have their favorite of the Gates, of the Tony Gonzalez, of the Rob Gronkowski, but Travis Kelce's the guy. I mean, he has 1 or 2 more years, and it will be a no doubt best tight end that we've ever seen, I think, in NFL history.
I agree. I love the idea of doing the stack, though, even though it's not an overall league. But you get Kelsey, Mahomes, man, that's a combo that can win you leagues.
For sure. And another player to bring up is Cooper Kupp. Falling this late in the draft, kind of with that injury concern, he's kind of questionable for week 1, is kind of what we heard from Sean McVay. Personally, I'm still drafting Cooper Kupp early. I'm perfectly fine taking that risk on him, especially with him just being questionable for week 1. They haven't ruled him out, haven't put him on the IR. So I don't think the hamstring is that serious for him to drop this far in the second round. I'm still taking him maybe late first round is kind of where I'm kind of targeting Cooper Kupp, but I really like that start for going Cooper Kupp.
Well, I probably would disagree with you slightly there, Logan. I think he belongs more on this back end of the second round, and my reasoning there is when guys have injuries at the start of the season, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I mean, we know
it's
how
a fair assessment.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk that you're taking with
And with hamstrings, is a team telling us what the real situation is with it? Because they don't want to, hey, let's take all the air out of the balloon before the season even starts and tell everybody that we're going to be lucky if we get 6 games out of Cooper Kupp. They're not going to say that. We've heard he's seeing a specialist. He's had a setback. I'm worried about Cooper Kupp. When he's on the field, dynamite. And if he's on the field and you get him here in the second round, you've robbed
He's going to be the
everyone
top
blind.
wide receiver if he's healthy. But again, your point.
Yeah, and I'm just, because we all complain about injuries. Oh, injuries ruined my season. So I always say, well, then why do you draft a guy who's already injured? You're kind of setting yourself up for that disappointment. I don't hate the pick. I just think with me, you've got Ridley, you've got Waddle, Devonta Smith, Devonta Adams. All these guys went right next to Kupp. I think I'd take all of them before I would Cooper Kupp with the news that we have right now.
So where would you be looking to draft Kupp? Would he be like early third or very end of the second
I think
round?
early third, you're fine. That's a risk I'd be willing to take. But then again, honestly, for me, he's probably not going to fit with my build. I'm not going to hate on anybody taking him, but if you're going to take him, I'd say early third.
So second round went like the first round we thought might go. Receiver. Every pick was a receiver except for Josh Jacobs and Patrick Mahomes. You had Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Josh Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, and Jalen Waddle. So receivers absolutely flying off the board in this round. Ridley, though, I know you just mentioned him, Kyle. I like him a lot this year. I think this is the highest I've seen him go. I haven't seen him go in the second round of the draft yet. Usually it's third, fourth round.
Yeah, he's really moved up over the past couple of months. I mean, we used to see Ridley in the 4th and 5th round probably 2 months ago, and he's just been shooting up drafts recently.
Well, that's a case, I think, of preseason hype.
Preseason, absolutely.
I mean, all of us, we follow news and notes, we follow Twitter, the reporting. The reporting on Calvin Ridley has been like out of this world.
Yeah.
Like everything looks great, and the few moments we've seen in the preseason look fine. What I continue to go back with Ridley, this is the pro Ridley argument. Jacksonville's going to throw. I think Jacksonville is going to throw a lot, and they got a lot of mouths to feed there. But I think Calvin Ridley is going to be that top dog. I think Trevor Lawrence is good for 650 passes this year, so it's getting a piece of that offense. He should have 120 plus targets, I think, this season, and that may be too low. There is the concern with he missed a year. He hasn't played in, what has it been, 14 months now? That's always going to be a concern, but I kind of buy into the idea of youth, offense. He's already been successful in the NFL, so not a bad pick at all.
Yeah, so before Ridley's suspension, he was kind of going in this round with Atlanta. He was going end of second, early third, kind of. So he's back in this exact same situation in drafts where he was 14 months ago. He's on a much better offense than Atlanta was for sure. But then you also have that, what you mentioned, missing 14 months. So that's definitely the concern with it. But the better offense kind of takes away from that and what we've seen from him in preseason.
So the second round, in my opinion, the one pick that kind of stands out to me is Calvin Ridley. But anything else surprise you guys? I mean, it was pretty chalk for the most part.
Well, I think going with Patrick Mahomes there in the second round, somebody was going to do it. I'm surprised he even gets selected in the first round. But somebody was going to pull the trigger on Patrick Mahomes in the second round. Going back to the Kelsey-Mahomes combo, I get it. And when it works for people, people swear to the highest mountain of how great it is to have a stack. My fear is always, obviously, you've got you got two guys on bye on the same week.
That's true.
I know we expect Kansas City every single Sunday to score 30 points, but believe it or not, they didn't average 30 points. Believe it or not, Kansas City did have a few games last year of less than 24 points. So when you have that much focus on a Kelsey Mahomes, there are going to be weeks you come up short. Additionally, and this only matters, you never hear from these people, but if one guy goes down, you're now screwed at two positions. So if Mahomes were to go down, okay, now you're scrambling for a quarterback, and now you wonder, well, gosh, the backup in Kansas City, is he going to have the same rapport and the same level of success that Mahomes had with Kelsey? Or if Kelsey goes down, well, now you're scrambling for a lousy tight end. Because really, if you have Travis Kelsey, even in 18 rounds, guys,
You might not take
I wouldn't draft another tight end. I really wouldn't. I'd be loading up on running backs and wide receivers. I'd worry about tight ends for that one bye week. When you make the commitment to Kelsey, I think you make a true commitment, and you're saying, hey, everyone else in this league is going to have to waste 2 picks on tight ends. I'm not.
Yep.
And I'm going to get that extra running back. I'm going to get maybe that extra wide receiver. So that combo, Kelsey-Mahomes, people love it. To me, it's a little more danger, I guess, than the payoff that people always expect.
Because something's going to have to suffer when you use high draft capital on a tight end and a QB. You're missing out. That owner doesn't have a running back yet.
Yeah.
So we'll be anxious to see how it plays out. Logan, any surprises to you in the second round?
In the second round, not really. It was mostly chalked, as you mentioned, with that. In the third round, I've definitely seen surprises with that. Darren Waller went in the third round. He's the number 2 tight end overall. He went before Mark Andrews, which is crazy with that.
And Waller's a guy, too, preseason hype.
Huge preseason.
If it wasn't a write-up about Calvin Ridley every day, it was a write-up about Darren Waller. The other interesting thing with Waller, and it goes to the WTF team, Saquon Barkley is his first pick.
Oh, yeah.
So now you have this double emphasis on the New York Giants. Now, hey, maybe the Giants rub my face in it like Tyreek Hill did last season. But to me, I don't want multiple pieces of the Giants offense. I really don't. Their wide receivers are just a big, vast morass of nothingness to me. They're all the same dudes. There's like 6 or 7 of them. None of them, to me, are going to appeal as this surger who has 85, 90 catches. Waller may be fine. Barkley may be fine. But I hate the idea of every week I'm counting on the New York Giants to score me 25 points or so.
Yeah, that's definitely scary. Again, we'll reset real quick. We're broadcasting live from the Post Sports Bar and Grill here in Lake St. Louis. There's 4 locations of the Post. Really appreciate them letting us broadcast from here. It's a great place to host your draft. Great food as well. Everybody's eating here except us.
I'm ready for some food over here.
But we'll get some eventually. But really great food. We really appreciate them letting us come here and broadcast this live. Again, we're looking at the Syndicate draft, $10,000. That is the prize. That is the buy-in, I should say. The prize. The prize is
that just gets you in the door.
Yeah, that's just the prize is $40,000. We're through 3 rounds right now. I'm with Kyle Elfrink and Logan Glasser of RealTime Fantasy Sports. So we have 2 tight ends now go in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
3 tight ends. I'm sorry. Darren Waller,
3
Mark
more.
Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. We have a tight end run. Andrews, Hawkinson too. Normally, Andrews and Hawkinson go ahead of Waller, but we have 3 of them go now. How's your approach for tight end? You want one of these guys, or are you going to wait and get?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring at tight end. I don't. If you want to build a team with Travis Kelsey, I mean, what were you saying, Logan? Last year, winning teams, most of them had Travis
He was
Kelsey.
number 1.
He was the
player
difference
on
maker.
teams.
So, hey, who are any of us to say, hey, don't start with Travis Kelsey? Last year, he was a league winner. Now, the idea of what do we have here? 4 total tight ends in the first 36 picks. It's too rich for me. I mean, I'm somebody who's fine with tight end 8, tight end 9. I think there is even a little more depth at this position. I think the rookies who are dangerous, this is not a position where rookies arrive in the NFL and they just take off. But there's some very good rookie tight ends. Laporta in Detroit, Kincaid in Buffalo. I think even a Michael Mayer with Las Vegas. There is some talent there. So I don't mind waiting on tight end. I'm even more receptive to waiting. None of these guys are bad players. I just think it takes you away from, again, those running backs and receivers. That's always my goal early on.
Michael Mayer's one guy. I feel like he gets no love out of any, and I don't quite get it. Do you have any? I mean, I know they brought in who did they bring in another tight end? I can't think of his name. The guy he battled Hodgins.
Well, this should say
battle
Isaiah Hodgins.
No, I think he had cancer, and Logan's going to look it up.
I'll
for
look
me.
it up. Let's see.
I would say that Mayer was
Hooper.
Austin
Hooper.
no, that's not who I was thinking of. I'm way off. But Austin Hooper.
Well, Mayer, maybe the reason there's not hype, because there is with Kincaid, there is with Laporta, even a guy like Musgrave in Green Bay. Maybe the reason that Mayer doesn't have it is because Mayer missed most of the preseason.
That's true.
What was it? Shoulder injury, I think he was dealing with. He should be fine week 1, but that didn't allow kind of that bubbling up of intrigue and excitement with him.
For sure. And I think Jeffrey mentioned this almost on every single RT Sports show last year, how disappointing tight ends were last year.
Yeah,
I mean, every single show, I think we were talking, tight ends aren't doing that good this year. I mean, if you look at Mark Andrews had a down year. TJ Hawkinson, he had an okay year, but not for being drafted in round 3 value-wise. Darren Waller, he was hurt for most of last year. Travis Kelce was really only that one tight end that stood out, and that's why he was such a winning player last year on teams.
He's going to bring up Irv Smith later. That's his guy.
Irv Smith is my guy. I love Irv Smith,
last
and
year.
he's disappointed me like the last 2 years. Now he's in a new situation. I think it's a great situation.
Here's what I'll say with tight end. Kelce gives you that edge on everyone.
Yeah.
That's what we always hear. Travis Kelce, I'm going to have the best tight end, and you probably do. But for everybody else in this league, you're all kind of dealing with crap at tight end. So it's like that emphasis of, I'm going to get Darren Waller. Darren Waller's really hit or miss, and Darren Waller has been fairly quiet and injured the last couple of years. He's older than a lot of people realize because he had some off-the-field issues that kept him from getting his NFL career started. I don't think he's a surefire third-round pick at all. Hawkinson, I'd take Hawkinson over Waller, to tell you the truth. With how he looked with Minnesota once he got there, I think that's just a better selection. Now, they're different. 4 picks difference?
Yeah.
So you're kind of splitting hairs here. But if we're going to stack those tight ends up, Waller versus Hawkinson, I'll take Hawkinson all day.
And as we talk about tight end, we talked about Cooper Kupp falling because of his injury situation. George Kittle, he's a guy I've been really slipping, and he slipped here already. I mean, past some of these guys who historically he's gone before, but that's another injury risk. You guys have won any stock of George Kittle at all, or is guy?
There's just too many mouths to feed in San Francisco's offense. I think that's my big concern, rather his injury. I mean, you got Debo, you got CMC, you got Ayuk. There's just so many different options in that 49ers offense. So that's what kind of really scares me about drafting Kittle.
To me, whenever on a per-play basis, he can dominate. I think he's still quite good. But you watch a San Francisco 49er game and you watch George Kittle, it hurts. It hurts to watch him play. He always looks like he's going to come up playing. And he's a warrior. I think he's probably the best leader on that entire team. George Kittle gets the fans fired up. He gets that team fired up. He's great for the on-the-field product. In fantasy, I think, again, the price tag's just too high for a guy like George Kittle. A great player. Love him. Enjoy him when he's out there. I just think we're going to be lucky if he even plays 14 games this year.
Yeah.
So we're through 3 rounds right now. No team took 3 straight receivers or 3 straight running backs. I want to ask both of you, what team do you think more copies what your build would be? Is there a team out there that you're like, hey, this is how I would build my team? You like it? Logan, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, let me look through these teams real quick and look at
Or
the.
if you got
I'll
somebody.
tell you the one. I do like the Chase Waddle Mixon at the front, and the reason I like that, Chase and Waddle, both those guys are huge performers. They can blow up for massive games. So I kind of like that combo. And then I know Joe Mixon's on the out. Everybody's bored by Joe Mixon. And last year, I mean, hell, his entire year was like that 1 week, that game against Carolina. But he is still in my opinion, unopposed guy in Cincinnati. He's going to get the work. And that off-the-field stuff appears to be off the field, not going to keep him. So I like that 1, 2, 3 there. There are other teams I like, but you said kind of fits my build. My build's going to be a running back, wide receiver approach. I would not have a QB at this point. I would not have a tight end at this point. So that kind of puts me in the minority. I have 3 or 4 teams I can look at that have followed a strategy I would employ.
Yeah, for roster builds, it's so hard to adapt. I mean, you have to adapt to each draft. Each draft is going to be so completely different. The team that really stands out to me, though, is Garbage Monster. I really like their start. They got Robinson, St. Brown, and then they have a stack of Andrews and Lamar Jackson. So I really like that.
I mean, again, and Jackson Andrews. I think separately, I'm fine with either guy, but man, putting so much.
It's a big.
I mean, Lamar Jackson is stellar, and Lamar Jackson can dominate a game. Mark Andrews, disappeared for the last 2 months last season. Now, maybe it was an injury.
I mean, there was also not Lamar at QB, so that does play a factor.
Speaking to what we were talking about earlier with the Mahomes Kelsey, when one guy goes down, they both get sunk. Independently, if they're separate from each other, I'm fine with Andrews and Jackson. Having them together, not my cup of tea. That Baltimore offense is pretty boring, and I don't think they're going to be any different this year than they have been in
Yeah, that's my question. They're supposed to be more pass heavy. Are we buying that? I'm not buying it personally.
I like Flowers this year, but that's just
like
me.
Flowers,
I like
yeah?
Flowers this year. He's kind of shot out the drafts.
I think they'll try to pass. I think they want to do that. Here's the problem, though. Lamar Jackson's been in this league now for 6 years, and getting Lamar Jackson to complete even 63% of his passes is like mountain climbing. It's difficult. And now today in football, you got to be 67, 68%. He's a hell of a player. He's dynamite in the fantasy game. He gets you all those points with the rushing yardage. But in real life, I think Baltimore just needs to realize this guy is not really the 65+% completion percentage. He's just not going to get there in my estimation.
I agree. You guys gave us your team builds you like. I'll give you mine. So I like Nick Chubb, A.J. Brown, Travis Etienne as the first 3 picks. That's kind of – I like to go 2 running backs. I want to anchor receiver and anchor running back on my team after 2 rounds. That's what I like to do. And then I still think it's important to have 2 really good running backs. And I think receivers deeper this year. I think there's 25 guys I feel like are 1 and 2 receivers this year. I really do. And I think you can get away with waiting a little bit after you get that anchor number 1 and getting that number 2 receiver a tad later. So that's kind of the way I've been approaching a lot of drafts. That's kind of what Please Dolphins did with his team. So I like that.
I'll say this. If you just look at who had the best 3 picks, if I had to say, man, I like these 3 players individually, it's King FF 2023. You got Justin Jefferson. You got Chris Olave. I would doubt there's going to be a better combo of anybody in this league. And remember, we're only starting 2 receivers, so he's got that taken care of. And then he gets Jalen Hurts. Now, again, I'm not going to take a quarterback that early, but of the guys who did the best, 1, 2, 3, I think I'd put the guy sitting in the 2 hole there with Jefferson, Olave, and Hurts.
All right, let's look at round 4 now. That's going so Fields would be the first pick in round 4. Then Keenan Allen, Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins. I was going to say Dustin Hopkins. DJ
that would
Moore.
Be a hell of a pick. That's off the board.
I don't even know. He's with Tennessee. Is he in Tennessee now, Dustin Hopkins? He got traded. He was one of those kickers that got traded.
I can't remember. I think most of them got traded last week, it seems like.
And then DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Dameon Pierce, Alexander Madison. So 2 of the first 3 picks were QBs. Again, really receiver heavy. We had 6 receivers go off the board, 3 running backs. So any surprises this round you guys see?
The 2 names that jump out to me from this 4th round are Chris Godwin and Alexander Madison.
That's earlier from Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin, I am just out on that Tampa offense. I mean, my God, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, whoever the heck it may be, I think that's scary. And then with Madison, it's a little bit of the Pollard thing going on. Although Pollard has even shown more than Madison. Madison's always been like, if he just got a chance, what could he do?
He's had a couple chances.
And he hasn't done much.
I mean, Cook missed a couple games last year, and Madison stepped up into that starter role, and he didn't really produce much.
Yeah, and so I get it. You got to take a running back at some point. Madison is probably the guy to start the season in Minnesota, but they do have some youth behind him. Ty Chandler is a guy. If I have Madison here in 4th round, I'm probably going to get another Viking running back just so I kind of have a good grip on that offense when they are running the football.
So I have 0 shares of Alexander Madison.
I'm the same way. I don't think I have any either.
Now I like Godwin earlier when he was going in the 8th round or so. I was happy with taking him at that point, but 4th round's a little too rich for my blood. Like you said, that offense is definitely scary. And we can bring Ben Chiarelli in if he's got a second here to talk to us. I think he can hear us. And he's through 5 rounds. He has Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and Najee Harris, Aaron Jones, and Mike Williams. I don't know if Ben is with us right now. Oh, there he is.
Everybody.
There you are. All right, Ben, are you happy with your start to the draft at this point?
Yeah, I wanted to try and make sure that all of my receivers were dead by week 5. I think that was, really playing.
You achieved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I heard you guys' commentary on Tyreek Hill, and this wasn't really necessarily a pick for the first round. It was more a pick for the second round. I am not as high on guys like Olave and Waddle and Smith, and was hoping that some of these running backs might fall to me there, given how wide receiver heavy a lot of these drafts have been. So that was more kind of a setup pick, and I really just think Hill is consistently an 18 to 25 point guy, and in the first round you're really looking for consistent production in that range. So that was kind of the thinking there. And then when you're playing big money, if Cooper Kupp falls to you in the late second, you got to pull the trigger, I think. So every once in a while you got to take some chances. But followed that up with Mike Williams, who of course also an injury risk. So I'm going to have to do some covering the behind here later in the rounds as we move forward.
Well, one thing I'll say, Ben, you're totally right when you're in a league like this and Cooper Kupp is falling and you grab him. So you made that move. I would have said, 5-6 picks later, maybe I'd be more in tune with Kupp. The one thing I love, though, that you did is some people will say, okay, I got Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and I only need 2 starting wide receivers. I'm set. You understand, though, Cooper Kupp's got an injury. And so getting Mike Williams is actually a very smart move, because if Kupp's injury lingers, you still have a very good wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 with Mike Williams as kind of the support and the cover for a Cooper Kupp injury.
And I actually have Williams above Keenan Allen this year in that offense with the offensive coordinator change. I think we're going to see some upside in Mike Williams, and the hope is that Mike Williams lasts until Cooper Kupp is back, and that was kind of the thinking there when I went forward there, and then just take some steady eddies there at the running back position to kind of make up for that potential variability.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Ben. Are you happy with your running back situation, how it turned out? You got Harris and Jones. Like you said, those are pretty steady options at that position after going receiver to start. You happy with those guys?
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones and the other guy, not to be mentioned because he's still on the board. I think they're both going to get used this year. I think the Warren hype is a little overdone in Pittsburgh. I have my terrible towel behind me, so I like to think I know that team pretty well. I think Najee's going to be really solid. I think Kenny Pickett stepping up this year is only going to benefit Najee, and I think he's very underrated as a wide receiver threat out of the backfield. So I feel really good with him as kind of my anchor RB as I'm moving forward.
We've kind of talked about the draft as well, what has happened so far. Has there been any surprises to you? Anything stand out?
Yeah, Tony Pollard was also a surprise to me. Didn't expect him to go there, but again, I think you guys are right. If it's your guy, he's not going to make it back. You got to snap him there. I'll tell you what I'm not surprised about is that Chad Cocktails and Dreams sniped DJ Moore from me. Had him in my queue even after I picked my pick before that because was hoping he would drop around. So not getting DJ Moore there was painful. I was hoping to have him as my wide receiver for 3, but I think Pollard is kind of the surprise of the draft. And then I would say also kind of those 3 the 3 tight ends in the 3rd round was surprising to me. I have not seen Waller. I've seen him creeping up into kind of that 2-3 hole, but I've not seen him creep into the 3rd round. A couple months back in the big tournaments, that we have on RTS, I was getting him in the 7th. So he has flown up boards here recently.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, we will let you go. We're going to come back to you a little later, let a few more rounds pass, and we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us in the middle of the draft. I know it's tough to keep up with everything as that's going on, but it's really great to get insight from you. Appreciate it. We'll be back with you here shortly. So, guys, we're through almost 5 rounds right now. Okay.
We've only had 1 wide receiver taken round 5.
That's new.
That's
and it was
surprising.
Ben. He took Mike Williams, like Kyle pointed out. I like that pick too. Like you said, it's a smart pick. Getting another good receiver to have as a backup insurance for Kupp. It was really a good strategy. Definitely. I like that a lot. Anything stand out now in round 5? We have 2 picks left.
Yeah, we just had Breece Hall go. That's kind of a guy that you kind of question on where you're going to take him just because of the Dalvin Cook situation with the Jets signing him, how much of his workload it's actually going to be his in the backfield. But he looks like he's going to be good to go for week 1. I think they might limit him in the first couple of weeks just until he fully gets back up to speed. But I don't mind it.
Well, and the beauty that you have with taking a risk on a Breece Hall here, because I think there is risk, but the beauty is what this draft allows you to do, 18 rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, you can build up so much support at running back behind Breece Hall. Let's say it is a slow start in week 1, week 2, and week 3, or let's say, gosh, they are going to do a 50-50 split with Dalvin Cook. Well, in a draft like this, you have plenty of places to get running back depth. So I worry a bit about Breece Hall. I think people are just assuming he's going to come back and be 100%. I'm not really there. But in this sort of draft, at this point in the draft, no issues taking Breece Hall just because I have so much wiggle room with the additional rounds to go and build my running back field.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name any names, but there's definitely players you're going to be eyeing in those situations that are for sure going to be starting for those first couple of weeks. That might not be afterwards for that. So,
and I wanted to point out too, though, that team you talked about how you liked it, Logan. For me, I don't know if I want to take Hall as my RB2 just because I think there's some risk there. I don't know. I might go safer. I like the Akers. Akers has some risk as well. There's some other guys too, but that's a risk you kind of have to take though. If you wait on that position and you go tight end and QB, you end up with a guy who's your RB2 that has a few question marks. I don't know. I might play it a little safer there. That's me personally, though. But like Rachaad White just went, I feel, again, offense is terrible, but I really think he could dominate the workload. I may have leaned him over Hall personally. I don't know about you, Kyle.
Well, I probably would go Hall. Neither guy really wets my whistle a whole lot. But you look at the 3 running backs there at the end of the 5th round, Hall, Akers, and White. I mean, to me, they're all kind of boring and too much risk. But again, we're in the 5th round. And this running back field is actually pretty thin, I think, this season. So you have to take these risks. But I look elsewhere in that 5th round. I love Kenneth Walker in the 5th round. I think that's awesome value. He's going to miss time. He always misses times. But if you look at his game-by-game results, that dude was a beast last season on like 6 or 7 different occasions. Getting him in the 5th round is to me, a pretty good steal. The other thing in the 5th round, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I know they're old-fashioned and they're not going to run for 600 yards and they're not going to have 8 rushing touchdowns. But if I can wait on quarterback, and I think they're kind of waiting, and still get a Burrow or a Herbert, I love it. And look at those 2 teams. They both went running back, receiver heavy, and they still got a stud quarterback in the 5th round.
I'm the exact same way. If I can get one of those guys 5th, 6th round, I'm doing that all day. I'd much rather do that than use a 3rd-round pick on Allen or Hurts. I just think it's a better strategy to go that way. What about
for quarterbacks, I think Trevor Lawrence is the last of the kind of tier 2.
And he just went.
Exactly, So I'm kind of mentioning that. So if I don't have a quarterback now, I'm kind of waiting a little bit longer just because I think there is a big drop-off after Hurts. It's not a massive drop-off, but there's so many guys that are all grouped together after him that I don't want to pay up for him right now.
Yeah, totally agree with you on Lawrence. I think there's just going to be so much quantity there. But you're right. After you get past the Trevor Lawrence spot in your draft, it is a collection of literally 10 or 11 QBs that you could say, wow, 2 of these guys could end up top 10. And it's not silly. So you nailed it, Logan. At this point, if you don't have your quarterback, and I think right now maybe, what are we looking at, like 4 teams don't have a quarterback, I think, right now.
Yeah.
You do just wait. Because there's really, if you've waited this long, there's no reason to say, oh, I've got to have Kirk Cousins, so I'm going to take him in the 7th round. If you don't get Kirk Cousins, you say, well, I'll just take Dak Prescott or I'll take Aaron Rodgers. So
and that tier
Anthony
is
Richardson even.
And that's like 5 or 6 quarterbacks of that tier. So it's perfectly fine.
Geno Smith's another guy. No respect for that guy. He was top 10 last year. He's like the 16th QB off the board, I think, right
Same
now.
with Goff. We mentioned Goff every single week last year on our show.
Well, the thing with Goff is you just got to make sure, start him at home and have another quarterback anytime they go elsewhere.
Sure.
That's a great point. There's a couple interesting picks in that round 5, though. I thought David Montgomery in round 5, but you can see what the owner did. He had Jahmyr Gibbs, so he took Montgomery.
I didn't really like the Gibbs pick in round 3. I kind of see the strategy here of I'm going to have both guys, but are you really going to go into the week? And maybe we get to November and this is the case. But are you going to go into a week where you're going to say Jahmyr Gibbs is my RB2 and I'm going to flex out David Montgomery? I think that's going to be 1 week this guy, 1 week the next guy. last season, a year ago, 12 months ago, probably to the day, we're all thinking DeAndre Swift is a top 10 running back.
Yep.
That's where he was going a year ago. What happened? Well, DeAndre Swift barely touched the football. Like they kept giving it to Jamal Williams. I don't know if either of these guys, Gibbs or Montgomery, can do what Jamal Williams did last season, but I do worry that Detroit is thinking of this like the modern day NFL does. In other words, these guys are going to split. And neither guy is going to be an RB2 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and speaking on that, both Gibbs and Montgomery are both projected 67 yards for that week 1. So on DFS Pick'em, so head over to DFS Pick'em. They're both projected 67 yards the same for receiving.
It's going to be a coin toss every week.
Is that total yards? Or?
Total yards for that. So Montgomery's projected a little bit more in the rushing yards, and Gibbs is projected a little bit more in the receiving. But both are right around that 67 total yards mark.
Yeah, and don't forget about all our leagues here at RealTime Fantasy Sports too. RTSports.com. We have our fantasy championship, $500,000 this year. Just an awesome contest. It doesn't cost $10,000 to get in like this one, and you can win $500,000.
Yeah, you can win 10 times as much as this league, and you can make that 40,000 look like chump change.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me say something here in this 6th round. We talked about Fire McCarthy way early when they did the combo with the Chiefs. One of the other issues you've got with that is if you go tight end, quarterback, what are you going to end up with at running back?
Yep.
I love what he ended up with at running back. I would take this every day. I would take Kenneth Walker. I'd take Javonte Williams. I mean, getting those guys in round 5 and round 6. I'm not a DeAndre Hopkins fan. I think he's cooked. But the rest of this draft that Fire McCarthy has put together, it's not necessarily my strategy, Kelsey and Mahomes. Yep. But that's a strategy that can win this league because he still does have 2 upper-end running backs, in my estimation, that he got despite drafting a tight end early, despite drafting a QB early.
Charbonnet is the one guy that's really impacted Walker's stock. It's really knocked him down, but I wouldn't be scared by it. Like you said, when he was on the field last year, man, he was explosive. He's really, really good back. And round 5 for a guy that I think he could be top 10 if all the pieces come together.
One thing I'd recommend here is getting – you mentioned Zach Charbonnet, the rookie. I'll remind everybody, Pete Carroll blows so much smoke in the preseason about every rookie, and it's always a mess. And Seattle has always drafted talented rookie running backs and young running backs, but they're always injured, and they always burn out for whatever reason. The bet here is if I'm Fire McCarthy, I'm probably jumping, quote-unquote, ADP to get – his backup, to get Charbonnet. That's who I'd like to have, and I will make sure I just lock down that Seattle backfield.
I'm getting another back next round regardless, even if it's not him. Because there's still guys out there that I think could help for sure. And let's look at this round now. We had Ayuk go with the first pick in the 6th round, Trevor Lawrence, Tyler Lockett, Drake London, Mike Evans, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Jahan Dotson, Alvin Kamara, Deontay Johnson. I mean, it's hard to argue any of these picks at this point. What picks do you like?
What surprises me is Dotson went before McLaurin. I mean, there is some injury concern with McLaurin, but I know their values have kind of been going opposite, but still, that kind of surprises me that he's overtaking McLaurin. Dotson's gone way up, and McLaurin's gone down ever since he had that turf toe. But still, for those two to switch, definitely surprising.
Are you guys sensing this too? The Commanders are suddenly getting a lot of love as an offense.
They are a little bit.
I'm kind of concerned.
Howell is getting tons of love.
Sam Howell's leaping up boards, and I'm concerned about it. And Dotson's part of this. I'll tell you the 2 picks here that catch me, or the last 2 that we had, Kamara and Johnson. Deontay Johnson is a 90-catch guy, and you got him in the 6th round. Now, last season, what was the number? 86 catches, 0 touchdowns. That is impossible to repeat. If he had 86 catches, you would expect 5 or 6 at least. So if you're getting that in the 6th round, sign me up. Now, that's his 3rd receiver, Ridley, Godwin, Johnson. I'll make a call right now. He took Godwin in the 4th round. Deontay Johnson's going to be starting more than Chris Godwin for night song. He got his wide receiver 2 as a wide receiver 3. And then the Kamara thing. I can't get behind Alvin Kamara with the suspension and dwindling numbers. I think we've kind of seen, and this is no knock. I mean, Alvin Kamara was great for a half decade. I just think it's kind of done. He's become that running back that is just a little washed up at this point, and that suspension doesn't help matters at all. So I would stay away from that pick in the 6th round.
The thing with Johnson, too, and you can attest to this, Logan, his ADP was a lot lower. Like you could get him in the
Big time.
8th, 9th round like a month ago. I feel like
Big time.
This
Heck,
is
even the 10th round.
Yeah.
TFC draft.
yeah. I agree. It's tremendous value.
Well, that brings up a good question, though, with Pittsburgh, because, again, all the preseason stories, Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett, all the offense and how much they're throwing. Are you guys buying that with the Steelers?
I do like Pickett. I think he's kind of starting to get into the area where he might be a little more rich than I'd like to spend on him, but they improved the offensive line. They have really good receivers. He's in his second year. He looked good at times last year, so I am kind of buying the hype. I do think Pittsburgh's going to be better this year. I like their weapons. Again, their offensive line, that's a big thing. They really improved it. It was awful last year. They made some free agent moves, draft picks. Logan, what's your thoughts on Pittsburgh?
Yeah, last year was awful. So I think it's only up for them.
Yeah.
I think it's up for them and also the Broncos. I think they will have a much better offense as well. So that's definitely another team I'm considering looking at. I think the Raiders are still not going to be as great. So I definitely like the Broncos and Pittsburgh to definitely improve on that offense.
Look at that Commanders
really go as
love.
much.
Look at that. Now we got McLaurin, we got Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
Man, the Commanders
Sam Howell's
are
going to go next.
taking over this draft here. With Denver, real quickly, Jerry Jeudy got selected here. There's a bit of an injury, so everybody needs to worry about that going into the season. And that brings up the case of the rookie in Denver that I think is another name surging up draft boards.
Yep.
We're going to see Marvin Mims probably in the next 2 or 3 rounds, I think.
I agree. And Jeudy, again, I think it's smart. You got 2 rock-solid receivers like Jefferson Olave. You can take a chance on a Jeudy who's hurt. He doesn't have to play him right away. I mean, you may want to flex him. He only has 1 running back, but you can take more chances when you have those anchor pieces like that.
Yeah. And there goes our next quarterback after Lawrence.
This has surprised me a little bit. It was a little surprising to see Watson going around 7. Like, normally it's around 8, 9 range. These second-tier options start to go. I mean, you get Trevor Lawrence in round 6 and Watson in 7. I'd be a lot happier with that Lawrence pick.
Yeah, would you be taking Watson as your next quarterback after Lawrence, or would you be looking to someone else besides?
I think the reason he goes there is because if Deshaun Watson is on, he's like one of the top 3 quarterbacks in fantasy football. And so, would I rank him here naturally? I wouldn't. But his upside probably beats everybody else sitting on that draft board right now at quarterback. Now, that upside was 3 years ago, and we've been through a lot of hell and high water since then.
Yeah.
He looked bad last year.
I agree.
Like, it was really bad. And I still think there's an inkling, there's a spark there of Watson being able to do the Watson things. So at that selection, it could blow up in your face, but I kind of like it. I think that risk is worth it because you could get a league-winning quarterback, and you got him in the 7th round.
If that's me and I'm drafting Watson in that spot, I'm not waiting long to get my second QB. I'm going to go earlier than, some people might just because I think Watson has some risk. But like you said, the ceiling's really high with him. He's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback, so the potential's definitely there.
I mean, he's up there with Jalen Hurts if he's right. I mean, we all forget because now Deshaun Watson is, that's a bad word to just say Deshaun. But look at his numbers when he was with Houston. Those were not very good teams. He had Hopkins, but the rest of that offense was pretty weak in Houston. I mean, his numbers were insane. So that risk, I mean, hey, we're talking about a league. We're trying to get $40,000. I'd take that shot on Watson.
And he can do it on the ground, too, which you see in all these top quarterbacks going. Hurts can do it on the ground. Allen can do it on the ground. Jackson, Fields, all these top quarterbacks that get taken. They all have that rushing capability, and that's what we see with Watson.
So a couple other backs. So you guys talked about Javonte Williams and Kamara in round 6. What about J.K. Dobbins? Any thoughts on him? I don't mind him. What do you guys think?
My thoughts are nobody knows what he can do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just never on the field. So maybe 1 year he'll stay on the field. Maybe 1 year he'll play 14 games. But we've been saying that now for 2 years. The problem I've got with it is if he's your 3rd running back, sign me up. Here he's your 2nd running back. I'm a little wary of investing that level on Dobbins. He can be a good player, but it's all he could be. He might be. If he could just stay healthy. I kind of think the injuries have piled up to a point where I don't know if he'll ever reach that hype level that he had.
Yeah, we saw in the playoffs in weeks 16, 17, I believe. He had some great weeks back there. Again, it's a big injury concern with Dobbins, but when he's healthy, for where he's going in these drafts, he's got great value. But again, that
Ooh, what about this name in round
there's
7?
Jonathan Taylor goes in round 7.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting to see when he would go. So he goes in round 7. The team that you kind of like their running back stack there of Kenneth Walker and Javonte Williams. Now they take a chance on Taylor. I think that's the guy to do it, though. If you're going to take Taylor, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to take Jonathan Taylor as your RB2. We all know that. And so getting him in the 3, getting him in the round 7, this is a good-looking team. And again, not a build I would have gone with.
I agree.
But I like the team and how it's been put together. The question is with Taylor, I would have to think after 4 weeks, he's just going to tuck his tail in and come back. I would think. And even getting, let's say he plays 12 games this year, whatever the number may be. If I get 12 games of Jonathan Taylor in round 7, sign me up. And honestly, if I get 10 games of Jonathan Taylor, I think that would kind of be my breaking point. Is I got to get at least 10 games from Jonathan Taylor, which means, he can miss 5-6 weeks. So at this point, I kind of like the dark filter.
You okay with Taylor at this point? What do you?
Yeah, I personally prefer more in TFC leagues than this standalone league, just because you need that high upside perfect lineup kind of with that TFC. So you're taking that high risk on players. In this type of league, if you start off 1-3, even 0-4, it's going to be hard to make the playoffs. But again, if you get Jonathan Taylor back fully healthy in a lineup where he's motivated to win, he's unstoppable.
I'm looking at this, Jeff, and I would argue, and again, remember, this is a drafter who started with a tight end, quarterback, and 2 wide receivers. I would argue that he has the best trio of running backs that I like, at least. People may disagree on that, totally. But I love the idea of Walker, Williams, and Taylor. I think that talent can't be beat anywhere else on the board. Now, you'll get pushback. Some people will say, no, let's go with, another Chubb, Etienne, and Pacheco, who just went. Barkley, Jacobs, and Miles Sanders.
That would be my pick.
Okay, I'd go Walker, Williams, and Taylor. And again, that's coming from a team that ignored running back in the first 4 rounds.
I agree. It's definitely a good build. One guy we kind of glossed over, and I always like to get people's thoughts on him because he's kind of polarizing. Kyle Pitts. He went in round 5. He went to the second team King F 2023. Kyle Pitts. I mean, is he going to rebound? Do you have any faith in him?
Athletic-wise, he's probably the top tight end athletic-wise.
Yeah.
The big concern is obviously the quarterback with Atlanta, with Desmond Ridder there. So that's obviously the main concern there. But athletic-wise, he's just so talented that it's hard to pass up on him, especially in round 5.
I said at the end of last season, we were doing a show, we were saying, okay, where are we going to be in 6 months? Let's make predictions. And I said Atlanta is going to win the NFC South. That's what I was saying in January.
Oh, wow.
And it was not because Atlanta, oh, wow, they've got such a great ability and such talent. It was the NFC South stinks.
That's true.
And their schedule was, because, we know the opponents are going to have. You looked at it, it's like, this schedule is nothing. And then they go out and get Bijan Robinson, and I kind of felt even better. Why am I talking about that? Well, Kyle Pitts, to me, you got him in the 5th round here as a tight end. Guys, I don't know where you stand, but the odds of Waller, Andrews, and Hawkinson being 2 rounds better than Kyle Pitts, I'd rather just have Kyle Pitts and wait my 2 rounds. So I love the value versus off what those other people had to pay 3rd round cost on Waller, Andrews, and Hawkinson. I love getting Pitts in the 5th round.
Yeah. Definitely the upside's there, potential's there for him to be huge this year. I'm like you. I think Atlanta could be pretty good this year. I'm kind of intrigued. They exceeded my expectations last year, and I felt like they lacked a lot of talent last year, and
they're the nicest house on a really crappy block.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they are. I don't think they're good, but they can fall their way into a 9-8 record.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's look at rounds. Did we recap round 6? Yeah, we did. So let's look at round 7. Picks in round 7, James Conner, Brian Robinson, Deshaun Watson, Dallas Goedert, George Pickens, Christian Kirk, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, who is falling down draft boards a lot compared to earlier in the season, Antonio Gibson. Then we have one more pick. A lot of running backs this round. Who's the running back you guys like? Besides Taylor, because we know he's the most talented, but who's the guy you like?
The running back I don't like is Dalvin Cook.
That was going to be the guy I liked, I think.
Okay, I disagree on this. Absolutely. I personally don't like it just because I still think Breece Hall is going to be that main back once he's fully healthy, especially type of one of league like this. I want a top running back in that situation. I'd rather take Jonathan Taylor, who's just going to miss the first 4 weeks, and then he's going to be that lead back in that backfield, rather than Dalvin Cook, who's going to be splitting and even taking that running back 2 role once Hall is healthy.
Taylor is an easy answer, like you said, Jeff, and certainly like you said, Logan. I mean, Dalvin Cook for me fits over these other guys just because I think Dalvin.
Yeah,
Cook,
I don't think the other guys really stand out.
The other guys are pretty net. Like James Conner to me is washed, and that offense is going to be so bad. That team is going to be so bad. There's not going to be any rushing attempts for James Conner, so I'm kind of out on that. Pacheco, I mean, the Chiefs, what are we up on? Like 4 or 5 years now of multiple running backs, and they don't really. I mean, it doesn't matter who they have. Swift. He's competing with 3 other dudes in Philadelphia. Antonio Gibson. It's interesting that Gibson and Robinson both went in this same round. I don't know that I like either. You know, you got to make a choice, but I guess I go Dalvin Cook. I would guess, guys, when it's all said and done, and this may be crazy, so thankfully we're on YouTube and everybody will be able to watch this in January. Dalvin Cook's going to have more carries than Breece Hall this year. I just think he is. Now, maybe one more carry, but I'm going to put him down for more carries than Breece Hall.
Breece Hall might have more receptions. That's where he's going to kind of factor in there.
That's at first when I saw this list, I would have said James Conner a month ago, but man, that QB situation is a complete train wreck. I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand why they're tanking. I mean, you would tank to get Caleb Williams. They got Kyler Murray wrapped up for forever. So I don't know.
It could be one of those Bear situations last year.
That's true.
Trading away that first overall because they got a hole for that. I mean, they got so
well,
many
and
pieces.
Arizona's dead. I mean, they need the picks.
Yeah.
They need the talent.
Absolutely.
So you're right. It's trading that first overall pick to get 5-6 draft picks for Caleb.
Yeah.
And they may even get more because I would argue Caleb Williams out of USC is going to be a more highly touted quarterback than the 3 that we were looking at this year.
I agree. So I would pick Antonio Gibson just based on the fact new offense that likes to throw to the running back. I trust him more than Brian Robinson. I know he might get more of the carries, but I think Gibson's going to catch the ball. I just think he needs a chance. He's really talented, so give me Antonio Gibson out of that career, but it's not very exciting. And it's another reason.
Kind of like looking at the NFC South of running backs.
It's another reason I think all of us, Logan kind of defers to receiver early first, but it sounds like you and I both kind of want to get those 2 running backs on our roster early, and I think it's a good reason why.
I'm a little surprised and again, we have a flex, and it's PPR, so a lot of people probably will go receiver as their flex. I'm a little surprised how heavy the wide receivers have gone, considering you only need 2. You only have to have 2. It's a little heavy, but again, most of these people, when you draft, 3 of your first 6 guys are wide receivers, you're probably committing to saying, this guy's going to be my flex option most weeks.
A player that just got taken that I really like is Cortland Sutton. He's kind of jumped up my draft boards recently just because of that Jerry Jeudy situation. Personally, I talked about this earlier. I think Denver's going to have a much better offense. He's going to be leading them in targets probably for the first couple of weeks, depending on that Jeudy situation. So I really like him taking him.
What do you guys think of this Aaron Rodgers call?
Yeah, that's a little early for him. You seem going a lot later than that.
That's a rough one. And I've talked about this a lot, so bear with me, but their schedule is brutal.
It is.
The Jets have an absolutely buzzsaw. Like their first 8 weeks are out of control how difficult these games are. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to New York to throw the football 580 times. I think New York, they have Dalvin Cook. They have Breece Hall. They're a defense-first kind of team. Rodgers is fine as your QB2, but this is a QB1, and there's a lot of other guys who probably have more upside than Aaron Rodgers that are available right now.
Totally agree. There's only 2 teams left that do not have a QB. One of them is Ben Chiarelli, who we've been talking to on and off, so be anxious to see when he pulls the trigger on his first QB. Again, I want to reset here a little bit. We're broadcasting live from the Post Bar and Grill here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're actually in Lake St. Louis, a suburb of St. Louis. But
is this still a suburb way out here?
I guess it's not a suburb.
It's like another state out here.
It is.
I thought I had to change my time zones whenever I got out here.
I agree. It's a long way for me coming from South County, especially. That's a long way for you guys not from St. Louis. But we're here at the Post Bar and Grill. Great place to host your draft. So if you haven't done it yet, you're from the St. Louis area, I highly suggest coming out here, hosting your draft, or just come out and get a bite to eat. Great food, great beer. Everybody's enjoying themselves out here. I'm with Kyle Elfrink and Logan Glasser of RealTime Fantasy Sports. So we are through about 8 rounds. We're doing the Syndicate draft. This is $10,000 per team. Just an awesome high stakes league, the ultimate high stakes league. Again, if you want to get in any leagues here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, go to RTSports.com. Click on that money league link. You can sign up for all different options, all different price points. Our fantasy championship as well. Just a great site to take advantage of all your fantasy needs. Again, the season is about a week away, so you can still get in drafts. We got plenty of time. We're drafting all the way up until Sunday, right, Logan?
Correct. We're drafting all the way up. I mean, drafts will be going up until week 5 or week 6 of the NFL
we did do
season.
that.
We go all the way up until week 10. Also, when the season starts, our most popular contest is Face Off. That's a 3-week competition where each week you're going to pick a new roster. You can only use that player once in your roster. So if you use Patrick Mahomes week 1, you can't use him in weeks 2 and week 3. That's a really popular contest that has really taken over once the season starts.
I love that setup. I've never had an opportunity to play it, but that to me is more. I know best ball is another thing. You guys do a ton of best ball with RT Sports, and that's very popular for people. This kind of one and done that you talk about, Logan, I think is so attractive, and it takes a lot more planning than we usually do in fantasy football, which is what I kind of like. It's more of a. There's a lot more strategy to it. I think fantasy football can sometimes be dumbed down, over the course of a year, or your decisions every week. I love the idea of, hey, you got to pick that moment to choose that player.
Sure.
And get him in your lineup.
And talking about strategy, think about this one. So we've got a contest called King of the Mountain, and it lasts until the NFC, AFC championship weeks. You can only use a player one time. So you get a QB, running back, and wide receiver each week. But if you get to the AFC championship in that finals, and you already used Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, you're kind of out of luck, and you just take a 0 at that position. So you kind of have to be strategizing about that throughout the year with that.
Look at this.
We got food up here for us.
Because everybody wants to
Just
watch
everybody
us eat during this
watch
draft.
us eat some wings at the
Yeah, who wants the wings?
That'll look good, yeah. Again, we're at the Post Bar and Grill. This looks great.
You got the burger, Jeff.
Yeah, Logan can have the burger. This does look good, though.
You gonna be done with it? We're gonna just go eat while you
Yeah,
finish
we're
this.
gonna go. Logan's gonna finish up. So we may take a break here for a minute here, if that's okay with everyone. We'll come back on here in 5 minutes. We'll talk to Ben Chiarelli, and we'll get his thoughts, and we will get right back on. Give us a break. Let us eat some food here, and we appreciate it. that happens every time I walk in the room. I don't know about you guys. Every
That's
time I
what
walk
happens
in the room,
when you hang out with Jeff Power.
Exactly.
Okay,
You get all sorts of applause. We're back here though. We're doing the live Syndicate stream draft, $10,000. We just took a little break to enjoy the great food here at the Post Bar and Grill in Lake St. Louis. Guys, I don't know about you, but that hit the spot.
Pretzel sticks, man.
Oh my God.
Like a fresh tasting pretzel stick. Like
Yeah.
a new way of a pretzel stick. Who'd have thunk it? But they do it.
I know. And that sauce you dipped it in, that honey. Oh man, that was good. Wings were good too. I highly recommend. Highly recommend. Good stuff. So we are now through 9 rounds. We are halfway through about the 10th round. Teams are getting formed here in this league. A lot of interesting stacks. I mean, nothing really too out of the ordinary when it comes to loading up running backs or receivers. So not much to talk about there, but definitely some really interesting stacks. Let's talk about these last couple rounds. So last time we went off the air here for our 5-minute break, we looked at round 7. So let's look at round 8. The first pick in that was Marquise Brown, then David Njoku, Jordan Addison, Aaron Rodgers. We kind of touched on that. Cortland Sutton, Gabriel Davis, Khalil Herbert, Jackson Smith in the Jigba, Michael Pittman, Elijah Moore, Pat Fryermuth, Evan Ingram. So 3 tight ends went off the board. So Kyle and I, these are the guys we would be looking at tight end. Which guy do you like out of that?
Or
none of them?
Well, if I had to choose, Njoku would be the guy. Now, Dalton Kincaid went a few picks later in round number 9. Kincaid with Buffalo, I like him, so that's a good thing going on there. None of those tight ends, if I'm going to wait, I'm probably still waiting.
Oh, okay.
You know, if I'm waiting at this point, I'll probably wait another round or two. Now, you can get burned that way. Don't forget, you can get burned by trying that strategy out. So that has happened on occasion to me, believe it or not. I love the pick in round 8 of Michael Pittman. I think that's a steal to get him in round 8 of a PPR setup that is wide receiver 4. That's our friend Ben. Well, I got to say, for the most part, his draft, I don't love every pick, but it's a solid draft. And I don't know how many guys we got who haven't, but he's yet to get that quarterback, and we are almost about ready to end round 10.
So it's funny you say Michael Pittman. You love that pick. That's a guy I have a ton of stock on. For the fact that he's going in round 8, round 9, did the QB situation really get worse this year? I mean, it didn't. And he was a top 20 fantasy receiver last year. Got a ton of volume. Anthony Richardson's throwing to him this year. It can't be as bad. And they could be down by a lot now with Jonathan Taylor holding out, maybe not even playing at all. So I think Pittman's great value. You like Pittman at all?
Yeah, I think a medium on Pittman. I've got a couple of shares of Pittman. I'm not overloading Pittman at that range, but I got a couple of shares of him, so I'm not completely fading him there. Anthony Richardson's accuracy concerns kind of concerns me a little bit. I think I saw his last game was 6 for 17 passing, so that's definitely a concern for me. I think he's going to be a dominant rusher at that position, which is going to make him such a great fantasy value. But for wide receivers, I'm a little skeptical for the Colts. But I don't mind Pittman, though, because he's the clear number 1 wide receiver. And he's going, round 8?
Yeah.
So, and you see what goes around him. Elijah Moore went after him. So you got Michael Pittman or Elijah Moore. I mean, Moore has huge question marks, in my opinion. I don't know, yeah.
Well, then you got a Deshaun Watson, Elijah Moore back-to-back there in round 7 and round 8, so getting a piece of that Cleveland offense. You know, to kind of further Logan's point, behind Pittman, there's nothing in India. I mean, there's rookies, there's unproven guys that can get you excited. I know Gowns has a lot of people fired up. But really, this is the Michael Pittman show. He should be good for 80 catches this year. On Richardson, I'm with you. I'll be surprised if Anthony Richardson completes 60% of his passes this year. I think it's going to be a fairly steep learning curve. That doesn't mean, though, that he won't succeed in fantasy.
Yeah.
Like we've seen it with Justin Fields. Justin Fields has been pitiful on occasion as a thrower, but he would save your backside by having 95 yards rushing. We could see that from Richardson this year, too.
So Gabe Davis goes in this round. That's an intriguing guy to me. Last year, all sorts of hype around
so
him.
Much hype.
He was going 3rd, 4th round. Now he goes round 8. I actually have seen him go later in drafts. What do you guys think? Bounce back? Do you take a chance on him? What's your thoughts?
I'd take a shot on him. More as a 4th receiver in a league like this than a 3rd receiver, so that's a little bit of a high pay. I think you need a better third receiver when your second guy is DeAndre Hopkins.
That's true.
I just don't know how much is left in the tank for Hopkins with that particular team in Tennessee. So Gabe Davis is fine, and really the round's not bad. It's just, does the team fit? And I don't know if Gabe Davis really fits that team, at least as I see it.
Personally, I'm fading him a little bit. I'm taking another position at that spot, and I really like Nico Collins and Trey Burks a couple rounds later. Those are guys that I'm kind of high on, so I personally would take maybe a running back in that position instead, and then I'm going to be looking at Nico Collins or Traylon Burks. I mean, Nico Collins is going to be that number one option for Houston. Their offense isn't going to be that great. I mean, he also has competition with Robert Woods. You got Tank Dell coming in as well. So there's definitely some competition there, but he should be the number one wide receiver there.
Also in that round, I love the Khalil Herbert pick in round 8. I mean, that's a starting running back that you're getting really, really late. Now, again, we don't know if Khalil Herbert can last 17 games. We don't know if Khalil Herbert can handle 270 touches even. But again, in round 8, that's just not much of an investment. Here's another case where I think the guy drafted later will be more valuable. J.K. Dobbins was the second running back that this owner took. This is Cocktails and what was it? Cocktails
Dream.
and Dream. I'll say Khalil Herbert's going to be more valuable than J.K. Dobbins, and he got Herbert 2 rounds later than he did Dobbins.
And it's interesting. He really went running back heavy. We kind of questioned the Dobbins pick. Maybe he feels the same way. So he took 3 running backs in the next 4 picks. Herbert, A.J. Dillon, Tyjae Spears. Spears, that's really early for him. But again, if Derrick Henry would get hurt, he's looked really good. So you can see the thinking. But again, probably kind of concerned about that second running back spot. So he's hoping one of these guys could fill that void if Dobbins would happen to get hurt again. You like any of those 3 backs that he took? Dillon, Herbert, Spears. You like any of those guys, Logan?
I don't mind them. I don't think I'm in love with them. A lot of it depends on the injury status. I mean, there's luck involved with fantasy football, all the wellness skill. Spears, if Derrick Henry goes down, his value is through the roof. But a lot depends on that injury to Derrick Henry, because if Henry's still healthy and he's running well, Spears isn't going to be starting in your lineup anymore.
Definitely. So let's look at that next round then. We had, which way is it coming from? Is it coming from Bigsby? The other way.
P-Ryan.
P-Ryan, all right. Round 9 goes P-Ryan, Zach Charbonnet. We kind of talked about him earlier. Dalton Kincaid, Jamal Williams, Jalen Warren, A.J. Dillon, Rashad Penny, Michael Thompson, Raheem Mostert, Brandon Cooks, Sky Moore, Tank Bigsby. So a lot of running backs. They carry risk. So it's kind of these mid rounds, they can win or lose a draft. Any picks you think could win or lose?
What catches my eye is all these guys you mentioned there in the backfield are pretty well, they're kind of handcuff selections for the most part. You know, you're kind of just saying, well, if the other guy gets hurt, this guy's going to have an effect. One of them is actually a handcuff within the same team, and it's a 10KHS. I think that's him. He has Kamara, and now he has Jamal Williams. So he kind of has both the. But everybody else, like the P-Ryan, the guy who selected P-Ryan does not have Javonte Williams. The guy who selected Charbonnet does not have Kenneth Walker. Whoever selected Jalen Warren does not have Najee Harris. So those are a lot of handcuffs that disappeared for the people that were hoping to get those guys. They all went here in round 9.
Yeah, you know who I really like in this round is Mostert. He's going to be starting for the first 4 weeks or so. I at least guarantee.
You think he's going to be healthy 4 weeks? Come on, Logan.
Yeah.
We're hoping for 2 weeks for Mostert.
With Jeff Wilson being on the IR.
Yeah.
Out of all those backs, he's the most intriguing to maybe get that starting role. But like you said, 31 years old, can't stay healthy. I still think they could be a team that gets Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette. It would make sense to me, unless they really think a chain went the next round, unless they think he can be the guy. They're really thin at running back.
Yeah, well, they're thin, but I think they're fine with that just because the kind of offense they have. It comes from that 49ers, tree, if you will, where they kind of just plug and play whoever they got. And that's why you have Mostert and Wilson, a couple of ex-49ers that are with the Dolphins. On that team, please, Dolphins here. We talked about Aaron Rodgers going to round 8. That was too early for me for that particular. A couple rounds later, Dak Prescott. So now that's the combo every week trying to figure out who to start. Do you go Aaron Rodgers? Do you go Dak Prescott? That'll be a fun decision all week long or all season long, kind of debating between those two guys as you go through a
So
season.
I was thinking the same thing when I saw that. Like, we ripped the Rodgers pick a little bit, but kudos to him for getting Prescott back. Because I think that's what you need to do. If you're going to take a QB, wait on it a little bit and ask some question marks, go back and get that guy who you can pair him with and start on a weekly basis.
So you just play based off matchups.
Yeah, that's
those
what
two.
I'm doing, yeah.
Whoever has the highest over/under in that game, that's what I'm kind of looking at.
You know, we're starting to see a few teams go with their second quarterback. And again, this is a one quarterback league for those who are just tuning in. So a few teams are making their second call here. Night Song, which is team number 3 on the board. We talked about Deshaun Watson in round 7, then Anthony Richardson in round 10. And you talk about two just high upside, Hail Mary kind of picks at quarterback. A Watson-Richardson combo.
Yeah.
If things go really right for those two, you almost have a headache as to which of these superstar runners and which of these superstar 25-point scoring guys am I going to play each Sunday.
I agree. Definitely some risk with both those guys, but man, they could be really good if everything falls into place for them. Let's look at that next round as well. I saw a lot of running backs go in round 10. I didn't talk about round 10. So that was Quentin Johnston, Devin Achane, Jerick McKinnon, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Rashawn Johnson, Tyjae Spears, Kenneth Gainwell, Romeo Doubs, Anthony Richardson, Nico Collins, Juju Smith-Schuster. Nothing too really stands out surprising there. Any guys you really like out of that group, guys?
Yeah, Rashawn Johnson has kind of gone up in drafts probably
a lot. Yeah,
he's gone up a lot. I mean, we used to see Johnson going in maybe rounds 13 and 14. He's really creeped up, and now he's going in round 10 of this draft. We don't really know who the huge number 1 back's going to be out of Chicago. We can assume that's going to be Herbert that's going to assume that role, but it's kind of up in the air. You also got Foreman there as well. So, I mean, there's still 3 backs there. We don't know who's going to be that number 1 back in that back.
I look at the 4 receivers that went in that round 10. Juju, Nico Collins of the Texans, Quentin Johnston, the rookie with the Chargers, and who was Romeo Doubs there with Green Bay. I mean, do any of them excite you guys? It's pretty thin. I mean, I look at round 11, I'd rather take a shot on Treylon Burks for sure over any of those other guys. Those kind of just seem to be dudes. Like
if Johnston was in a best ball league, I'd like it because I think he's going to have some big games. But you hear the reports, Josh Palmer's the number 3. That's what everything says. He's the number 3 behind Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. So he's going to be getting more chances. Quentin Johnston's going to be more of a platoon, stretch the field type guy. So he scares me a little bit in standard.
And to add on with Johnson, the owner making that selection, Batman, at the very tail end on the turn. Man, those wide receivers, risky. I just see it as risky with Ayuk, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, Marquise Brown, Garrett Wilson. I mean, that's where he's going. But we're still kind of projecting Garrett Wilson to have this big breakout season. It's kind of weird to me when you see Garrett Wilson going before CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, and Devonta Smith. Like, that is a real strong push for Garrett Wilson going ahead of those studs right now at wide receiver.
I totally agree, yeah. I like Wilson. I think he could have a huge season, but like you said, I'm going with those other guys first. We actually had a kicker and defense going the last 2 rounds. Round 11 was the first defense to the Police Dolphins team. They took the 49ers defense, and then in round 12, the Batman team you're just talking about took Justin Tucker. Are you guys going this early on defense, the kicker?
I'm not, personally. I think it's just a little bit too early. Maybe if it got into rounds 13 and 14 and the 49ers were still there, I would take them. But personally, I'm going to avoid them. There's another defense that's still on the board that I personally would take. I'm not going to name them, but I really like their schedule to start the season. The first 4 or 5 weeks, I really like their matchups. So
we may be thinking the same defense. We'll have to compare notes.
I won't name them.
Because the way Logan's talking is how I draft team defenses. I want to kind of look at week 1, week 2, week 3. Is there a team there that has good matchups back to back to back? San Francisco, I think everybody says, okay, that's the number 1 team defense. Nobody's going to have an issue with this. What's their schedule look like, though? Because let's say in week 1, if they're playing Kansas City, are you really excited about San Francisco's defense? Probably not. So I pulled up their schedule. It's actually pretty good. I mean, you get to get Kenny Pickett in week 1. It is on the road. You follow that up with a road trip to LA to take on the Rams. You get the Giants, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Browns, the Vikings. Really, that's a fine run of opponents there for San Francisco's defense. So they're going to go number one almost everywhere, and the schedule does help them just a bit to make that move.
Yeah, I'm fine with going earlier on a kicker and defense in a league that starts that has 18 roster spots, but I can't go this early, especially a kicker. And like you said with the defenses, they're so volatile from year to year. I mean, the elite ones do well. You can kind of predict the ones that are going to do well for the most part, but there's always other options that end up scoring big. So I'm waiting on it.
Well, and the argument would be, well, Justin Tucker's the best kicker, and he is. I don't think any of the three of us will argue that he's not one of the best kickers in the NFL, but can you sit here and guarantee me he's going to be the Travis Kelce of kickers? You can't. So it's not like so much of an edge is gained by going with Justin Tucker and being the first person to strike a kicker.
The counterpoint, I guess, that they could be making is the next players that go off the board are Jacoby Myers, Allen Lazard, Deontay Foreman. Are you really going to be starting those players each week unless an injury happens?
Yeah,
so that's the counterpoint, because that is a starting spot still too. So do you want that best player at that position, or do you want a guy that will only start if the player does get hurt?
Let's talk about that next round a little bit now, round 11. So 3 tight ends. We have Juwan Johnson, Sam Laporta, Taylor Higbee. I'll be honest with you. Johnson's a guy I've been targeting a lot. He's my number 2 tight end lately just because I think he's in a good situation. But you guys like any of these tight ends here going to this spot? I mean, Laporta's
Laporta.
He's the first tight end for that team, though. You good with that?
I'm totally good with that. I think Detroit's going to make heavy use of Sam Laporta. And we saw that last year. They were kind of running through a circus act of tight ends after Hawkinson was traded. And you'd have guys every week that would catch like a 4-yard touchdown, and it was just some random tight end. Dan Campbell is an ex-tight end. I think the tight end is a part of this offense. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown as their lead receiving target. After that, until Williams comes back, I mean, it's kind of open-ended in this receiving attack. I think they went out and targeted Laporta, and I think he's going to have a very solid, I hate to say like good year because it doesn't happen at tight end.
Yeah.
But if he comes away with 50 catches and 5 touchdowns, no one's getting excited when I say that, but that's good.
Especially in round 11.
Round 11, yeah, you'll take
round
it.
11 value for a tight end, that's great value there.
And
It'd
maybe
be
he
different
becomes
if
a
he was being
touchdown
drafted
guy.
in round 5. It's completely
Yeah.
different if he's being drafted there, but for a round 11, that's not bad.
So Higbee's the one guy, too, as much as it pains me to say it, just because I don't think they're going to be very good, but Kupp's hurt. Higbee had over 100 targets last year. He was one of 4 tight ends with over 100 targets. Again, not exciting, but if you're looking for value late and you can get somebody like that as your number 1 tight end, and he's probably going to end up platooning it with another team, so another player, I should say, another tight end. I'm okay with that. I think Higbee's decent value as well in that spot. And we'll have to talk to Ben here after he makes his next pick, but he took Kirk Cousins round 11. That's his first QB.
Mm-hmm.
So he's his number 1 QB. I don't mind it. I mean, Cousins is going to throw the ball a lot. I don't trust Madison in the running game. So are you guys okay with that?
I have a propensity to usually go the Kirk Cousins route in a lot of my drafts. And they're not even 18-round drafts like this one. And I think you're fine with Cousins. Here's the thing. And I try to just remind everyone of this. If you're getting Kirk Cousins, you're signing up for the Kirk Cousins experience, which is this. He will suck for 2 quarters. Like, you will get to halftime, and you'll be checking your live box score, and it's like 47 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, and then you'll slam your computer shut. You come back an hour and a half later, it's like, wow, he ended up with 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's great. And that's so Cousins is one of those guys. I have no trouble owning him. I have a major problem watching him. I don't want to watch him. I'll own him, but I'm not going to watch him.
What about watching him on the quarterback special? Did you watch that? I liked him on that. You should watch it.
I think he's a very likable guy.
He's very likable.
I mean, I would too if I was an average quarterback and I made $200 million. I mean,
he's super likable. I had a different view of him after watching that. I don't know.
He holds the largest comeback in the NFL.
Yeah,
that's true.
What a game that was.
And he is generally disliked by the fantasy community.
Yeah.
but he's always right there as a QB1, like 10, 11, 12 in that range.
He was 6 last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, and especially because Dalvin Cook is also gone now. Are they going to turn more to the passing with Cook being gone?
Well, you don't want him throwing too much. That's the
That is true.
there is a sweet spot for Kirk Cousins to be throwing.
And then you also got Addison coming in as well. So, I mean, you got a good 3 wide receiver core there with Jefferson, Addison, Osborne. You got Hawkinson as a tight end. That could be a very dangerous wide receiver core in the long time.
So before we bring Ben on, we're going to let him make his pick here. Let's talk about his team. He has Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Najee Harris, Mike Williams, Alvin Kamara, Dallas Goedert, Michael Pittman, Jamal Williams, Romeo Doubs, Kirk Cousins, Damian Harris, and Russell Wilson. So he did not wait long to get that second QB. Ben, can we bring you on now and talk to you about your team if you got a second? If you can hear us, I'd appreciate it. There he is. So Ben, we're 13 rounds in now. What are you thinking? You feeling pretty good? You gonna win this?
Well, not to talk my own book. I was really liking what Fire McCarthy was doing there until we got to that wide receiver 3 spot. That could work out. Gabe Davis was on an injury all last year, but I thought that team was coming together really nicely. I think I agree with Kyle that the Ken Walker, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor potential upside there was nice. I also like what WTF was doing there until he decided to go Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott with 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week, which was a little bit odd to me. I thought there was better value on the quarterback board there. Until he waited to Jared Goff, Geno Smith. I didn't think it was good with Goff, but when he backed it up with Smith, now I feel good that he's going to find some value there. So I think the 2 of them back to back are really doing a nice job in the middle of this draft.
So you were the last team to take a QB. Are you happy with going Cousins Wilson? Do you think that turned out well for you? You like that stack?
I was until Kyle agreed with it. Now I'm feeling a little.
You're the only one I'll agree with tonight.
Yeah, there we go. I think you guys were talking earlier in round 6 when Lawrence went off the board about how there's a pretty big drop off there. I think there's a lot of question marks after that. So at that point, once Lawrence goes off the board, my idea is just get yourself depth and then get one of these guys that's kind of the same guy from 13 to 20. There's a lot of the same guys. So I kind of went a safe and upside approach here. Kirk Cousins, I think, is a little bit safe. We don't know what we're going to get out of Russell Wilson under that Sean Payton offense, but there could be some upside there when Judy comes back. So I figured bang, bang, get those 2. Also, I was surprised at how many people took a second quarterback later in this draft. That's really odd for a high-stakes draft like this to see so many people double-tap the quarterback position in a 1 QB league. So I thought I would have a little bit more value later on, but happy with the way it turned out.
So you got Damian Harris in round 12. I want to ask you about him. Like, he's one of the guys that it's tough to gauge what kind of role he's going to have. But in round 12, I mean, it's definitely a guy that can end up getting the goal line carries in a really good offense. Is Harris a guy you've been looking at a lot this year? Or just give me your thoughts on him.
Yeah, when I'm late in drafts, I'm typically looking to snipe other people's handcuffs at this point because you potentially get another RB1 on your team. When I took Jamal Williams, I don't typically handcuff. I probably would have gone Penny or Mostert there had I not had Kamara. But because Kamara is out week 1, I potentially have Cooper Kupp out week 1. I wanted to be sure that I had some optionality there going into the first couple weeks of the season in that flex spot, which is why I decided to take Jamal Williams there. Also, every team needs a spirit lion and a spirit animal, and Jamal Williams kind of fits that bucket for me. So,
do you think at all been about defense and kicker at this point in the draft, or is it still too early for you?
No, I'm a big stream the defense guy. A lot of people will take these kind of high-rated defenses, and then you look at them in week 1, and you're like, crap, do I really want to be going against that offense? So I think there's probably 6 or 7 defenses that have really nice matchups in the first couple of weeks that may not necessarily be these higher-ranked defenses. Looking at rankings on defense to me, doesn't make too much sense. And then I think we have a lot of high-powered offenses that can get the ball in scoring position. So from a kicker perspective, I'm usually last couple of rounds with that. So you won't see me touch that until round 16, 17, 18.
So, Ben, in a deeper format like this, 18 rounds, I'm sure there's guys you're thinking about getting later. You don't have to, obviously, I don't want you to tell us, but is there like a list of players you like to make before draft, like guys that I'm going to think about taking in round 17, round 18? Do you do anything like that as you head into a high-stakes draft like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where we started is you guys said, Ben, what's the game plan? And I said, I don't have one. I think first, if I start thinking too much, that's when it goes egg-shaped. But I think that not having a game plan is really for those first 6 or 7 rounds, right? You really have to let the draft fall to you and see how your build is gonna work best. But when you go back, RTS has some great tools to look at all of your percent ownership, all of your lineups, see, who are the guys I'm taking a lot. And I think what you find is the guys that you have the highest percent ownership in are these guys in these later rounds. You kind of have those folks that you target in these later rounds that you think might have upside or might have some stability. And those are the guys you end up with the most shares of. It's never I have the most shares of Christian McCaffrey, right? It's these later round picks. So absolutely, there's some folks on my board that I get pretty consistently in these later rounds.
So this will probably be the last time we talk to you before we go off the air here. So I wanted to ask you about waivers. How do you handle the waiver wire process in a league like this? I know some people overreact early in the season, but you don't want to miss out on guys. I know there's kind of a sweet spot, but in a league like this, how are you handling the waiver wire process?
Yeah, I tend to value wide receiver more than running back early on in the year because those running backs are just, never durable and you never know what's going to happen there. That being said, I'm a proponent of using my budget earlier in the season. Players are never more valuable than they are in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because you have access to those players for more weeks as you go. And I always like to save a little bit as we hit the playoff run too. You never know what you might trip into, and if you're in contention, you want to have some ability to work with it there. But like I said, I'm a streaming defense guy. I sometimes am a streaming tight end guy. We didn't talk about tight end, but I grabbed Dallas Goedert there in the 7th. After Goddard, there's a big drop off for me, so I don't feel like I have to grab a second tight end or do the streaming tight end thing that I normally would do. I'm kind of with Kyle there. I usually wait pretty late on tight end, but Goddard in the 7th just felt good to me. So I would say from a waiver perspective, early and often, if you can, in these high stakes leagues, because you want to maximize the value you get on that dollar.
Ben, I really think it's been fascinating listening to you during the draft, but draft like this, I think it's been great for everybody out there, our viewers. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I like your team. I think you did a good job stacking I like your stack, the way you approached your draft here. I think your QB situation can work. You got some depth at running back despite waiting on it a little bit. So I think it worked well for you. And again, Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and good luck in this league.
All right. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Ben. All right, let's get back to this draft now, guys. We are through 13 rounds. We're almost in the home stretch. Like I said, we're gonna end this broadcast at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. We are broadcasting live from the Post Bar and Grill here in St. Louis, Missouri. Lake St. Louis, they have 4 locations. It's been a lot of fun here. It's been a great time with Kyle and Logan, and it's just been a lot of fun watching this, talking to you guys, eating some good food. Again, if you have a draft still coming up here in St. Louis, highly suggest you checking out the Post here. All right. There's been a lot of defenses going, guys, lately. It's kind of surprising to me. We had 3 in round 12, another in round 13. So that's 5 of the 12 teams have a defense after 13 rounds. You guys okay with that?
It's a lot. I mean, usually maybe we might see the 49ers, Eagles go in that range, but usually we don't see 5 defenses.
Is the defense you guys were talking about gone?
Nope.
It's
Logan?
Not. No. Or mine is.
Oh, yours is gone.
Mine is gone. Baltimore was my defense. So they start the year out. They've got Texans at home that you probably can't ask for a better matchup with them. Rookie QB. You don't have a great matchup against the Bengals next. But then you get the Colts, another rookie QB in week 3. Browns, Steelers, Titans, Lions, Cardinals. So
That's
5
nice.
of those 8 matchups, those are good matchups, and you're starting them almost every single defense on that. So I really like them.
Not to give away too much, but I've seen this a lot lately, especially in our TFC leagues. a lot of people taking Washington late because they play Arizona the first week of the season. So if you're going to stream a defense, get the best one that's streaming for week 1.
Well, they're not going to cost you much.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they've got decent talent on that side of the football.
Yeah.
I don't think they're great by any stretch, but they certainly have talent. I wonder in this league, and this is going to kind of sound crazy, but again, we're trying to win $40,000. We're paying $10,000 to enter. We're kind of serious about this stuff. I wonder if there's anybody looking at this and saying, I have looked through all 18 weeks of the NFL season, and I found 2 defenses that correspond so well to each other, and I'm going to draft both those defenses. And I won't have to, the plan is I won't have to spend a dime on waiver pickups. Now, you'd have to look at all 32 teams. It's quite a schedule matrix. And this is far beyond, I've never done this in my life, but I've also never played in a $10,000 league. So if I'm putting that kind of money, you're trying to find an edge. Maybe someone in this room has that plan of, hey, boy, it matches up so well of every week I can play this defense, sit this one. Now it eats up 2 roster spots. So, and there's risk, injuries, all that, but might be something to pay attention to in the latter round.
I don't hate taking 2 defenses in an 18 bench. 18 spot roster spot. I mean, that's not especially if I wait. I mean, I'm okay with that.
The reason I don't like it is we still only have 12 teams in here. So like every week on the waiver wire, we're going to be at least 16 defenses available. So you're not breaking any kind of cardinal rule, but I think that would be the counter argument is, gosh, there's going to be so many defenses left on the waiver wire after this draft.
Yeah, it all depends about that roster format. So like with our All-American leagues, it's a roster size of 16. So I'm not taking 2 defenses in that. Again, like you mentioned, this is 18. TFCs, it's 20. So I'm taking that in those type of leagues.
Definitely. So we have about, 10-ish minutes left. Let's look at these teams. Let's examine them. What teams do you guys like? What stands out? What team do you think has a great shot to win it all at this point as you look at this draft board? I mean, I think some of the teams I liked earlier, I don't like their mid-round picks as much as I like their early ones. So it's hard for me to really say.
I still go back. Fire McCarthy's strong. We talked a lot about the Kelsey Mahomes combo. I love the Walker, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor back to back to back. Penny and Johnson, I don't know if those would have been my selections. Pickett, again, I don't. If you have Pat Mahomes in the league like this, my quarterback's probably not getting drafted until round 17 or 18, honestly. So I think maybe that's falling a bit for the hype with Kenny Pickett. The starting lineup here is very strong, and the immediate depth, like the top 2 guys on his bench, I like. We need to do some work on the back end, but the starters, I mean, that starting crew is going to give him a big leg up, especially in the initial weeks when you expect these guys to be healthy.
What about you, Logan? What do you like? Who do you like?
Yeah, I kind of like Cocktails and Dreams with his team. I really like his later picks with that. Kadarius Toney is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. If Travis Kelce does go down, as we talked about with his age, who's going to step up in that Chiefs offense? They've got a couple different options at wide receiver, but I like Kadarius Toney to step up with that offense. So I really like him at around 12. I think that's an absolute steal with that pick.
So Logan took my team. Thanks a lot, Logan. That was my team.
Well, that must mean there you go.
I guess.
I
like what he did with the running backs after Dobbins because I think, as 100%. Kyle mentioned, question marks, but man, he really loaded up on a lot of guys that could have good potential, and his 3 receivers are really solid.
Yeah, too. I'll tell you another thing I like with that team is, honestly, when you get to like round 9, round 10, you're looking for guys who can hit a home run. These are depth guys. You say, well, let's go for the gusto. Toney is that guy. Kadarius Toney is that guy. Tajay Spears, we talked about if Derrick Henry goes down. I mean, Tajay Spears can be that guy. A.J. Dillon, if Aaron Jones goes, like he's got guys with huge upside. Yep. Now, we may go 0 for 3 with all those guys.
True.
Kendrick Miller, who we got in round 14, that's another guy. So he's at least aiming high with these late picks and kind of, in my opinion, making some good lottery tickets.
I like what he did, too. Like a lot of people nowadays go 3 straight receivers and then take their first running back in round 4. He still got 3 elite receivers after taking that elite running back to anchor his team in Eckler. So
I'm digging Ben's team too. Ben, our guest.
I agree.
I really do like that build, and you're never going to agree with every pick, but I still go back to Pittman in the 8th round. I think Cousins Wilson is a fine combo. Even Devin Singletary in round 14.
I like that too.
Sign me up for that one.
He also has that New Orleans running back stack with Kamara and Jamal Williams. So you say, doesn't have Kamara for the first 3 weeks, but he's got Jamal Williams that's going to be. I might start him in that flex spot in the first 3 weeks.
So, Kyle, you mentioned that you may take 3 tight ends in a format like this, and we see our first team.
I did?
I thought
Somebody may, not me.
Oh, QBs.
3 QBs, yeah. I would never take 3 tight ends.
I'm putting words in your mouth. Regardless, there is a team that took 3 tight ends: Dalton Kincaid, Juwan Johnson, Jake Ferguson. So, to me, I like all 3 of those guys. I think they have potential, but I think that's just a headache waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's just weekly decisions.
And maybe one of the, Kincaid is obviously everybody's bet to bust through and kind of have that season. But you're right. Like let's say these guys are just dudes. They rank between 7th and 15th on the final board. Every week, you're going to probably guess wrong as to which guy to start. And that's just a pickle to be in as a fantasy owner. So you can max out at 2. I would say 3 is just way too much investment.
I just don't like 3 who are all similar.
Yeah.
That's what scares me. So
3 out of 6 picks are tight ends there.
Yeah.
Yikes.
What about Kareem Hunt round 14? Not on a team yet. I like it though as a dart throw compared to what's going around.
Wouldn't you take Fournette before Hunt though? And Fournette's
that's
still there.
I don't know. I think they're kind of 1A and 1B.
Kareem Hunt's been so quiet. I feel like I was in on that Hunt and Chubb thing, and boy, it fell off a cliff last year.
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt just had a really bad season.
Yeah, we just had a draft pick that we really don't see taking much of the drafts is Rico Dowdle, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver.
No, he's their backup running back.
Running back. I missed that. Yeah, you don't really see them being taken that much because you usually see Deuce Vaughn in that for.
Well, check out who got him though. Rico Dowdle goes to the Tony Pollard owner.
Yeah.
So
smart.
We all said, "Wow, what are you doing with Tony Pollard in round 1?" At least he backed it up in round 15.
And Vaughn hasn't been taken yet.
So let's talk about handcuffs. So here's kind of my thought on handcuffs. I'm good with it if you use high draft capital, but it's got to be the right fit behind them. I don't think just getting their backup, regardless of who it is a sound decision all the time. It still has to be a guy that's going to produce if he starts. So what do you guys feel about handcuffs?
This league, I'd be a little more interested in doing it because at the end of these 18 rounds, there isn't going to be much of anything on the waiver wire. And sure, guys will pop up at some point this year, but you're not going to have to get into that bidding war. I think sometimes you can kind of run too hot or too cold. Yeah. Some people don't care at all. Some people care way too much. There is a happy medium. I always, at the very least, if I've got that top running back and I invested that first or second round pick, I will do my best to try and get his handcuff. But after that, I'm kind of nonplussed by many of the handcuffs.
Yeah, I think for me, it depends on the league. If it's like a best ball or a TC or TFC, I'm looking for the high upside, so I'm not handcuffing. In a league like this, that's a standalone league, I will handcuff. But if it's not like TFC or best ball, I'm not handcuffing because you have to have that perfect lineup. So you're kind of relying on injuries at other positions to have that 4 top running backs in there.
So I wanted to ask you guys before we leave this broadcast, who are your guys this year? Who do you have a lot of stock of? Who this is my guy. I'm taking him. I feel like he's going to have a big year. Anybody?
I love and everybody should love him, but I have plenty of Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you're in a PPR league, I just think it's dynamite with Detroit. I think that's going to happen. I do like Kyle Pitts in a lot of spots. I don't often get him because someone's always willing to kind of go a little higher than I am. I think Kenneth Walker, who we talked about earlier, I have plenty of shares on him. There are some second quarterbacks, which for me it's very important to have second quarterbacks because I'm not going to get that stud. But I think as a second quarterback, if you can get Jared Goff as your number 2, that's a great spot to be in. I think Geno Smith as a number 2 is very good. And if you can get him tonight, somebody got him. But Richardson, as kind of worried as I am about his first year, there's still just such immense upside for how he plays the game and how we score the game. That getting him as your QB2, even if he fails, he may fail on the field and they win 3 games, but he can still be a pretty decent fantasy quarterback.
I think you're right. It's a price tag for me with Richardson. I think, like you said, the talent and the rushing upside.
It's probably gone down in the month, don't you think, his price tag?
I see a lot of people take him as a number 1. And
That's dangerous.
That scares the heck out of me. Who are some of your guys?
Yeah, it's a later sleeper, Rondell Moore. I kind of like him, even though I know the Cardinals are not going to be good this year. But his last 3 games before he got hurt last year, he scored 24 points, 15 points, and 19 fantasy points. So when he was healthy last year, he had production. I know the Cardinals have major concerns with that QB situation, but getting him in the 15th and 16th round, I'm fine with it.
So one guy I liked Brandon Ayuk, contract year. He's coming off a big season. I like Brock Purdy as his quarterback. I'd much rather get him than Deebo Samuel. I think he carries more risk, and you got to spend more draft capital on him. So Ayuk's one of my guys I've taken a lot of stock of. And I've also taken a lot of Sky Moore is another guy I kind of like. I know that situation's scary in Kansas City, but you can get him in the 10th, 11th round. I just think he's really good value. I like Miles Sanders a lot too. Again, his catches, he did not catch the ball at all in Philadelphia. He wasn't used as a pass catcher. He's going to get a chance now. So I think that's really a positive for Miles Sanders, getting a chance to catch the ball, number 1 back. I think he's going to have a big season. So those are 3 of my guys I like a lot.
One other thing I wanted to throw, if I can get Marvin Mims in the 14th round like they got tonight, wow. 14th round for Marvin Mims, I'm all over that for that grab there.
Yeah, how about some of these late round picks before we get out of here? Anybody? You said Marvin Mims. I kind of like Shaheed's a guy I've taken some stock of just because he's probably their number 2. Anybody else stand out?
You got Jameson Williams going around 14.
That's later than normal.
Yeah, it's later than normal. Again, you're going to miss him your first 6 weeks, and he hasn't looked great in preseason, but the talent's there from him.
Yep. Any other?
I would say around 15, Chuba Hubbard isn't happy. Now, you were just talking about Miles Sanders there, but we know he's had some issues, and for whatever reason, they've never just committed to him. Yeah. Chuba Hubbard was pretty decent, I thought, last season. So I think he would be a guy at this late. I mean, what is that? That's running back number 7 on that guy's team. That's a great RB7 if you got it.
Exactly. I like the Jalen Hyatt pick, too. That's a guy I'm kind of high on. We mentioned their pass catchers are just scary in New York, but Hyatt's a guy I think might be as talented as any of them. And if Waller gets hurt, I mean, I like that.
It's not a late round pick, but I should have mentioned Tank Bigsby in round 9. Put him down for 8 touchdowns this year. How about that? Wow. He may only have 600 yards, if that, but I'll go for 8 touchdowns.
I like it. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here now in a second. Again, thanks to the Post Sports Bar and Grill. It's been a lot of fun here. A great place to host your fantasy drafts. If you're here in St. Louis, there's 4 locations, great food, great beer selection, you name it. Just been a lot of fun here at the Post Bar and Grill. And thanks to the people in the Syndicate, $10,000. I mean, there's got to be people that do that. It's not us. We can't get in that league. I mean,
we sit here and criticize it.
Yeah,
right? What is this person doing? Well, you don't have the money, do you?
It's easy for us to say, right? And I think you guys, both Logan and Kyle, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great here again to do this. We'll have to do more of this. I think this is something in the works here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. We're talking about maybe doing some live drafts here in the city next year. So looking forward to that, definitely. Hopefully that happens. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and thanks for being a part of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. This has been Jeff Power, Kyle Elfrink, Logan Glasser. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a great night.